You're just the IT guy. You don't matter. The CEO laughed as he cut my benefits. He didn't know I owned the patent for the software. The entire company runs on. I revoked the license for breach of contract. The stock dropped 80% overnight. Hey Reddit, buckle up because this is the story of how I went from just the IT guy to the man who tanked a $1 billion company's stock in one night. And yeah, it was completely legal. Name's Joel, 37 male. This happened 6 months ago, and I'm still processing the absolute chaos that followed. Some nights I wake up thinking about how close I came to just accepting my fate. But then I remember what happened next, and I sleep like a baby. I worked at Apex Solutions for 9 years. Started as a junior systems analyst right out of college, worked my way up to senior infrastructure architect. Sounds fancy, right? To most people at the company, I was still just the guy who fixed the printer jams and reset passwords. Let me paint you a picture of what Apex was like when I started. Small operation, maybe 85 employees total, headquartered in a renovated warehouse in Seattle's industrial district. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the CEO actually remembered your name at company picnics. I was 28 years old, fresh out of University of Washington, with a degree in computer science, and about $73,000 in student loans hanging over my head. Apex offered me $52,000 a year, which felt like winning the lottery at the time. My apartment was a shoebox in Fremont, with 3 roommates and a bathroom that smelled like mildew. But I had a job in my field, and that's all that mattered. The work was straightforward at first. Database maintenance, user support, keeping the network from imploding every time someone opened too many browser tabs. Our systems were ancient. I'm talking software from the late 90s, held together with duct tape and prayers. The main platform was this monstrosity called DataCore Legacy. It handled everything from inventory management to client billing to project tracking. The thing crashed minimum twice a week, lost data randomly, required manual reboots that took 3 hours. We had 6 people whose entire job was just keeping it functional. I spent my first 2 years learning that system inside and out. Every quirk, every bug, every workaround. Got really good at explaining to angry department heads why their quarterly reports disappeared into the void. Here's what nobody knew. 5 years into my time there, I built something revolutionary. Year 5 was when I hit my breaking point with DataCore. We'd just lost a major client, Patterson Industrial, worth $4.2 million annually, because our system corrupted 3 months of their project data. Just gone. Vanished into the digital void like it never existed. The CTO at the time, this guy named Ron, called an emergency meeting. We need to upgrade, Ron said. DataCore is killing us. Management brought in consultants. 3 different firms, each one quoting between $15 and $22 million for a complete overhaul. Implementation time, 24 to 36 months. The board rejected every proposal. Too expensive, too risky, too long. So we stayed with DataCore. And I stayed angry. That's when I started working on something in my off hours. My girlfriend at the time, Rebecca, was a nurse who worked rotating shifts. She'd leave for work, and I'd sit down at my home office setup. Nothing fancy, just a desktop I'd built myself and 3 monitors I'd bought on Black Friday sales. And I'd code. Every night. Sometimes until 3 a.m. weekends were fair game too. Rebecca hated it. You work all day, then you come home and work all night on the same stuff. It's different, I'd tell her. This is mine. I spent 18 months building that system from scratch. Learned Python even though I'd only done Java and C++ before. Taught myself 3 different frameworks. Watched probably 400 hours of tutorials. Read documentation until my eyes blurred. The framework I built was adaptive. It learned from usage patterns, optimized its own processes, scaled automatically based on demand. It could handle 10 times Apex's current data load without breaking a sweat. The interface was clean, intuitive. People could actually use it without needing a manual and a prayer. I tested it against DataCore using our actual company data. My system processed everything 73% faster with 0 errors. 0. But here's the thing I did that saved my future. I built it entirely on my own time, with my own equipment, using my own resources. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. on weekends to put in extra hours. Used vacation days to code instead of actually relaxing. Spent $38,000 of my own money on server time, software licenses, development tools, and courses. Rebecca left me in month 14 of the project. Found me in the office at 11 p.m. on a Saturday, hadn't showered in 2 days, surrounded by energy drink cans and pizza boxes. I can't do this anymore, Joel. You're obsessed. She wasn't wrong. I was obsessed. But I was also building something that would change everything. The day I finished the beta version, I sat back in my chair at 4:17 a.m. and just stared at the screen. 18 months of my life, right there, functioning. Beautiful. Perfect. I crashed for 14 hours straight after that. When I finally showed it to Ron, the guy nearly fell out of his chair. Joel, this is incredible. This is exactly what we need. Better than any consultant proposal I've seen. Yeah, I said. I know. How long would implementation take? I can have us fully operational in 6 weeks. Ron's eyes went wide. 6 weeks? The consultant said 2 years minimum. I built it specifically for our infrastructure. It's plug and play. Ron called an executive meeting the next day. I did the demo in the main conference room. Showed them processing speed, data integrity, scalability, the whole package. The CFO, this woman named Margaret, asked the question I'd been waiting for. What's this going to cost us? I'll license it to the company. Reasonable terms. You're licensing it? This isn't company property? That's when I pulled out the documentation my lawyer friend Kevin had helped me prepare. Built entirely outside work hours using personal resources and equipment. According to my employment contract, it's my intellectual property. But I'm happy to let Apex use it. Margaret looked at Ron. Ron looked at the CEO, Andrew. Andrew looked at me. What are your terms? I'd thought about this moment for months. Rehearsed it in my head while debugging code at 2 a.m. License it for $50,000 a year. Adjusted for inflation annually. And I maintain full ownership of the patent and codebase. Andrew nodded slowly. That's more than reasonable. Hell, Joel, we'd probably pay 10 times that for what you've shown us. I know, I said, but I'm not trying to gouge anyone. I just want protection. Kevin had been very clear about this. Keep the licensing fee reasonable, but maintain ownership. That ownership is your insurance policy. They agreed. We signed the contracts. I got a bonus for the implementation. $12,000 in a plaque that said Innovation Excellence. I'd spent 38 grand building the thing, but whatever. I had my protection, and that's what mattered. Implementation took exactly 5 weeks and 3 days. We shut down DataCore on a Friday night, migrated everything to my system over the weekend. Monday morning, people came in and everything just worked. No crashes, no errors, no frantic calls to IT about lost data. People didn't know what to do with themselves. Our help desk tickets dropped 67% in the first week. Within 6 months, the results were undeniable. Apex could suddenly take on contracts we'd been turning down for years. Projects that DataCore would have choked on? My system handled them without blinking. Our client base exploded. Engineering firms started coming to us for complex data management. Manufacturing companies wanted our logistics tracking. Revenue went from $47 million annually to $89 million in year 1. By year 2, we hit $136 million. Year 3, $183 million. The company grew from 85 employees to over 400. Opened offices in Portland and Austin. The original warehouse got replaced with a proper corporate building in South Lake Union. I got promoted to senior infrastructure architect. My salary climbed to $94,000. Good money, but nothing insane considering I'd built the engine powering the entire operation. For 4 years, everything was smooth. Then Andrew retired. December 2023, he announced he was stepping down. The board started hunting for a replacement. They wanted someone dynamic who could take Apex to the next level. January 2024, they hired Gregory Chen, 34 years old, Stanford MBA. 3 years at a private equity firm where he'd restructured operational efficiency at 6 different companies. Translation: he cut costs, fired people, and made short-term numbers look good. Andrew warned me before he left. We grabbed coffee near the office. Joel, watch yourself with Gregory. Guy's smart, but he doesn't understand what we built here. Gregory started February 1st. First week, I walked into his office for our one-on-one. Guy had already rearranged everything. The walls had these motivational posters about embracing disruption. I already hated him. Joel, good to meet you. He didn't stand up. We talked about my system. He seemed suspicious of the licensing arrangement. Seems like we're overpaying. System's been in place for years. My jaw tightened. Because it's my intellectual property. The fee includes ongoing maintenance and updates. Right. We'll revisit that. Second week, Gregory called an all-hands meeting. Packed the conference room. He stood at the front with a presentation clicker. We need to evolve. If we don't adapt, we die. He clicked to the next slide. Operational Optimization Initiative. Corporate speak for layoffs. He went through 47 slides. By slide 23, he got to IT. Our technology infrastructure requires modernization. We're overstaffed and underperforming. That was garbage. My team was lean and efficient. March came around. March 15th started like any other Thursday. Got to the office at 7:45, grabbed coffee from the lobby machine, checked overnight system logs. Everything running perfect. Zero errors, 99.97% uptime for the month. At 9:30, my calendar pinged. Meeting invite from Gregory's assistant. Compensation discussion, conference room B, 10 a.m. No context, no agenda, just that. I should have known right then. Conference room B was the small one, the one they used for firing people. It had soundproofing and no windows. Private. I walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. Gregory was there with Amanda Reeves, the new CFO he'd brought in from his last company. She was mid-30s, always looked like she just smelled something rotten. And sitting in the corner was this guy I'd never seen before. Expensive suit, leather portfolio, the corporate lawyer look. "Joel, have a seat," Gregory said, again with the not standing up. Power play. I sat down. "We're making some changes to our compensation structure," Gregory started, that fake friendly tone that made my skin crawl. "Part of our operational optimization. We're moving to a performance-based model that better aligns with industry standards." Amanda slid a folder across the table. "These are the new terms." I opened it. My salary reduced from $94,000 to $67,800, a 28% cut. Annual bonus eliminated entirely. Health insurance switched to a high-deductible plan where I'd be paying $6,000 out of pocket before coverage even started. Vacation days reduced from 18 to 12. I looked up. "This is a joke, right?" "These are market rate corrections," Amanda said. Clinical, like she was reading from a script. "We've analyzed comparable positions across the industry. I built the entire system this company runs on." Gregory smiled. Not friendly. Condescending. "And we appreciate that contribution. But that was 5 years ago, Joel. This is about current value, not past accomplishments." "Our current value? The system runs everything. Every single department. Every client contract. All on my platform." "Our platform," Gregory corrected. "We license it, yes, but it's integrated into company operations. It's not like you're actively developing new features." I stared at him. "I maintain it. I update it. I ensure 99.9% uptime. That's active work. Work that, frankly, doesn't require your current compensation level." He leaned forward. "Joel, let's be realistic about your position here. You're in IT, technical support. You're a valuable member of the team, sure, but you're not exactly mission critical. You're in IT, not mission critical. I'd pulled all-nighters when systems went critical, canceled family events to fix emergencies, built something from scratch that transformed the entire company from a struggling mid-tier operation into a regional powerhouse. And this guy, who'd been here 8 weeks, was telling me I wasn't mission critical. What about everyone else? I asked. Is this happening across the board? The technical staff will see similar adjustments, Amanda said. Directors and above retain their current packages. Right. So the guys actually doing work get gutted, while management keeps their full salaries. And if I don't agree to these terms? Gregory's smile got sharper. Then we'd have to seriously evaluate your position at Apex. These changes are happening. The only question is whether you're part of the future here. The lawyer in the corner slid papers across the table. Sign here, here, and here. Changes effective April 1st. I looked at those documents, thought about my licensing agreement, that very specific clause Kevin had insisted on. License valid contingent on continued employment in good standing and maintenance of agreed-upon compensation structure. Maintenance of agreed-upon compensation structure. They were about to breach the contract. Unilaterally. Can I have 24 hours to review this? Gregory's jaw tightened. Joel, this isn't really a negotiation. We've made a business decision based on market analysis and operational needs. So that's a no? That's a, we need your signature today. I stared at him. He stared back. Amanda checked her watch. Actual power move. Looking at her watch like my career mattered less than her lunch reservation. Joel, Gregory said, and his tone shifted. Harder now. Let me be very clear. You fix computers. You reset passwords. You keep systems running. That's important work. But it's not strategic. It's not leadership. You're not irreplaceable. You fix computers. 9 years at this company. A system that generated $136 million in annual revenue directly and supported another $400 million in operations. I'd sacrificed a relationship, countless nights of sleep, thousands of my own dollars. And to this Stanford MBA who'd been here 2 months, I was just the guy who fixed computers. You're making a mistake, I said quietly. No, Joel. We're making the right business decision. And you're going to sign these papers, or you're going to find yourself making a very different kind of decision. The threat was clear. I picked up the pen, signed every page. Gregory smiled. Excellent. Welcome to Apex 2.0. I stood up and walked out. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from pure, concentrated rage. Made it back to my office, closed the door, sat down at my desk, stared at my computer screen for probably 5 minutes without moving. Ron knocked. Came in without waiting for an answer. Joel, I just heard. I'm sorry. I fought against this, but Gregory's got the board convinced this is necessary. It's fine, I lied. It's not fine. It's garbage. You built this place. Apparently, I just fixed computers. Ron winced. He actually said that? Word for word. Joel. Ron looked genuinely conflicted. I'm trying to push back where I can, but he's got authority I don't have anymore. New organizational structure. I report to him now. I understand. Ron left. I sat there for another 10 minutes. Then I pulled out my phone and called Kevin. Hey man, what's up? I need to see you. Tonight. It's important. Something in my tone made him not ask questions. I'll be at Stella's at 7. See you there. I barely functioned the rest of the day. Answered tickets on autopilot, avoided everyone, left at exactly 5 p.m. Met Kevin at Stella's Coffee near his office downtown. He was already there when I arrived, working on his laptop. Corporate law, always grinding. I sat down and explained everything. The meeting, the pay cut, Gregory's comments, word for word. Kevin listened without interrupting. When I finished, he just sat there for a second. Do you still have your licensing agreement? Yeah. Why? Pull it up. I opened my email, found the signed contract, showed him. Kevin read through it, then read it again, then started grinning. Joel, do you understand what you have here? A contract? A nuclear option. He pointed at Clause 7, subsection 3. License valid contingent on continued employment in good standing and maintenance of agreed-upon compensation structure. Yeah, that's the protection we put in. Joel, they just breached this contract. Unilaterally reduced your compensation. That directly violates the licensing terms. You can revoke their license immediately. The weight of that hit me like a truck. What happens if I do that? Kevin leaned back, that lawyer grin getting wider. Their entire system stops working. They can't access your software, can't process data, can't fulfill contracts, can't operate. The whole company grinds to a complete halt. That's legal? Completely. It's your intellectual property. They broke the contract, you withdraw the license. It's cleaner than a whistle. We can document everything. The compensation reduction, the breach of terms, your right to terminate. Any judge would side with you immediately. I sat there processing. What about my job? They'll fire me instantly. Probably. But you'll have cause to sue for wrongful termination. Plus, you'll hold all the leverage. They'll come crawling back begging you to restore access. And that's when you name your price. Kevin, this could destroy the company. 400 people work there. 400 people whose CEO just decided to slash your pay after you built the platform that employs them all. Kevin's expression got serious. Joel, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what's legally possible. Gregory made a business decision. You can make one too. I thought about it. Thought about Rebecca leaving because I was too obsessed with building something great. Thought about the $38,000 I'd spent, the missed family events, the sacrificed weekends, the nights I'd worked until I couldn't see straight, all to build something that transformed a struggling company into a success story. And Gregory's words kept echoing. You fix computers. You're not exactly irreplaceable. How do I do it? Kevin opened his laptop. We draft a revocation notice. Cite every clause they violated. Document the compensation reduction. Reference your patent ownership. Send it via certified mail, email, and through their legal department portal. Make it official. Make it airtight. We spent the next 3 hours drafting that notice. Kevin was meticulous. Every sentence legally bulletproof. Every citation precise. Every claim documented with evidence. By 10 p.m., we had it ready. One more thing, Kevin said. You built a kill switch into the system, right? Yeah. Authentication protocol. If their license status changes, access gets revoked automatically. How fast does it work? Immediate. The second their credentials show as invalid, the system locks them out. Kevin nodded slowly. Joel, once you send this notice, there's no going back. You need to be absolutely sure. I looked at that document. Pages of legal language that basically said, you broke our deal, now you lose access to everything. What would you do? I asked. Kevin considered it. Honestly, I'd be terrified. This is nuclear. But Gregory disrespected everything you built. Treated you like you're disposable. Sometimes people need to learn lessons the expensive way. I thought about my team. Good people who'd get caught in this mess. But I also thought about Gregory's smug face. The way he dismissed my work. The casual cruelty of cutting my pay while keeping his own bloated salary. Do it, I said. Send the notice. Kevin hit send at 10:37 p.m. on March 19th, exactly 4 days after that conference room meeting. The email went to Gregory, Amanda, the entire board of directors, and Apex's legal department. The certified letter would arrive Friday morning. What now? I asked. Now you go home, get some sleep, and prepare for chaos. I didn't sleep much that night. Friday, March 22nd. I got to work at my normal time, 7:45 a.m. Everything seemed normal. People getting coffee, settling into their desks, the usual Friday morning vibe. At 9:17 a.m., Gregory's assistant called my desk phone. Joel, Mr. Chen needs to see you immediately. I'll be there in a few minutes. He said immediately. I walked to Gregory's office. The door was open. He was standing by his window, phone pressed to his ear, looking tense. Saw me and ended the call abruptly. What the hell is this? He shoved a paper across his desk. The revocation notice Kevin had sent. It's exactly what it says. I'm revoking Apex's license to use my software. You can't do that. I can. You breached our licensing agreement when you reduced my compensation, so the license is terminated. Gregory's face went red. This is insane. You're going to shut down the entire company? I'm enforcing my contract, the same contract you ignored when you cut my pay. Joel, be reasonable. I was reasonable for 9 years. I built something that made this company wildly successful. And you decided I was just a guy who fixes computers. I never said, you said exactly that. Conference Room B, March 15th, 10:17 a.m. Quote, you fix computers. You're not exactly irreplaceable. Remember? He went quiet. So now you get to find out how replaceable I actually am. We'll sue you into the ground. Good luck. My lawyers already reviewed everything. I'm completely within my rights. You want to fight this in court? We'll be there. But every day your systems are down, you're hemorrhaging money. I left his office, walked back to my desk, set an alarm on my phone for 4:47 p.m. The rest of the day was surreal. Went to meetings, answered questions, everything normal. Except Gregory and Amanda kept disappearing into closed-door conferences. The legal team kept calling me, and I kept forwarding them to Kevin. At 4:35 p.m., I backed up my personal files to a thumb drive. At 4:42 p.m., I sent a company-wide email. If you need anything from me, reach out by end of day. Availability may be limited starting Monday. At 4:46 p.m., I logged into the back end of my system. Changed the license status for Apex Solutions from active to terminated. At exactly 4:47 p.m., their access revoked. Every terminal, every process, every dashboard just stopped. I watched through my office window as monitors across the floor went dark. Heard confused voices. Is the system down? I just lost everything. Is this a network issue? At 4:52 p.m., my desk phone started ringing. The CTO. I let it go to voicemail. Another call. Ron from infrastructure. Voicemail. At 5:02 p.m., my personal cell rang. Gregory. I answered. Joel, what the hell did you just do? I revoked your license to use my software. It's in the email I sent this morning. You breached our agreement when you cut my compensation. You can't just shut down the entire company. Actually, I can. It's my intellectual property. The license agreement was very clear about the terms. You violated those terms. Silence. Background noise. Other people shouting. Phones ringing. This is insane, Gregory finally said. You're going to destroy us over a pay adjustment? I'm enforcing my contract, the same way you enforced yours when you decided I wasn't worth my salary. Joel, listen to me. No, you listen. You had 9 years of me being loyal, building systems, fixing problems, making this company successful, and you repaid that by cutting my pay 28% and telling me I was replaceable. I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said. You assessed my value, decided it was less than my compensation, and cut me down. So now I'm showing you my actual value. Every single operation you run is built on my platform, and without access to that platform, you're dead in the water. We'll sue you. Your lawyers already have my contact info. Feel free. Joel, be reasonable. We can work this out. Reasonable? You want reasonable? I actually laughed. Okay, here's reasonable. You breached a legally binding contract. I'm terminating the license per the terms we both signed. If you want to renegotiate, have your lawyers contact mine. Until then, Good luck running your company without any functioning systems. I hung up, packed up my desk, not much to take, coffee mug, a photo, some personal items. Walked out of that building at 5:23 p.m. while chaos erupted around me. Got in my car, drove home, ordered Thai food, and watched Netflix. My phone kept buzzing. Texts, calls, emails. I ignored all of it. The following 72 hours were absolutely unhinged. Saturday morning, Kevin called at 8:43 a.m. Joel, you need to see this. He sent me a link to a Bloomberg article. Apex Solutions stock plummets 34% on system failure. The markets had opened in overnight trading. News was leaking that their systems were completely down. Investors were panicking. My email inbox was flooded. Colleagues asking what happened. Recruiters. Even reporters. I ignored all of it. Saturday afternoon, Ron called. Joel, what did you do? I enforced my contract. The entire company is dead in the water. We can't process anything. Payroll's locked. Everyone's scrambling. They should have thought about that before cutting my pay. Joel, Ron sighed. Gregory's an idiot, but 400 people work here. That got to me. Ron, what was I supposed to do? Let them disrespect everything I built? I don't know. Maybe. Would you? Long pause. No, probably not. Sunday morning brought more chaos. Stock dropped another 28%. Total decline, 62%. Business outlets ran it as a major story. Some portrayed me as vindictive. Others called it David versus Goliath. Sunday at 3:47 p.m., I got an email from Apex's board. Subject, urgent meeting request. Body, Mr. Joel, we would appreciate the opportunity to discuss a resolution. Please contact us at your earliest convenience. I forwarded it to Kevin. He called 10 minutes later. They're ready to negotiate. Monday morning, Kevin and I drafted our proposal. $8 million one-time licensing fee. $2 million annually going forward. Full restoration of my compensation, plus 40% raise to $131,600. Ironclad employment contract. And Gregory's immediate resignation. Kevin looked at that last item. This might be a deal breaker. Then they don't get their systems back. We sent it Monday at 11 a.m. By 2 p.m., we got a response requesting an in-person meeting. Tuesday, 9 a.m., Kevin and I walked into Apex headquarters. The lobby was chaos. Phones ringing nonstop. Employees clustered in groups, whispering. Security looked stressed. We took the elevator to the executive floor. The entire board of directors was there. 8 people around a conference table. Gregory sitting at one end, looking like he'd aged 5 years and 4 days. Amanda next to him, pale and quiet. Harrison, the board chairman, stood up when we entered. Old school guy, built his fortune in manufacturing, semi-retired but still influential. Joel, Kevin, thank you for coming. We sat down. The room was tense. You could feel it. Harrison cleared his throat. Let's be direct. We're in a crisis. 4 days of complete system failure. Our market cap has dropped $1.2 billion. 7 major clients have filed breach of contract notices. 15 more are threatening legal action. We're hemorrhaging approximately $4.8 million per day in losses and penalties. He slid a printed analysis across the table. Numbers, projections, disaster scenarios. We need those systems operational. We understand there was a dispute about compensation. We're prepared to resolve it. Kevin pulled out our proposal. These are our terms. Harrison read it, passed it to the next board member. It went around the table. Gregory's face went from pale to red. This is extortion, he said. No, Kevin replied calmly. This is a licensing agreement. You're free to decline and develop your own systems. Everyone at that table knew that was impossible. Building a replacement would take years and tens of millions of dollars. They'd be bankrupt long before it was functional. $8 million is ridiculous, Amanda said. Her first words since we'd arrived. Actually, it's quite reasonable, Kevin said. Your company generated approximately $183 million annually using Mr. Joel's software for 5 years. That's $915 million in revenue directly enabled by his intellectual property. He licensed it to you for $50,000 annually. You paid $250,000 total for nearly $1 billion in value. He let that sink in. The $8 million represents approximately 0.87% of the value his system created. In any reasonable valuation, that's extraordinarily generous. One of the board members, a woman named Patricia, spoke up. What about the ongoing annual fee? $2 million seems high. It's adjusted for inflation and accounts for ongoing maintenance, updates, and technical support, Kevin explained. Industry standard for enterprise software licensing of this complexity runs $3 to $7 million annually. $2 million is below market. Harrison looked directly at me. Joel, I want to apologize. Personally. What Gregory did was unacceptable. We trusted his judgment about operational changes, and clearly that was a mistake. Gregory started to object. Harrison cut him off with a look. We should have valued your contribution properly from the beginning, Harrison continued. You built something extraordinary, and instead of treating you like the asset you are, we let you be marginalized. I appreciate that, I said. Will you accept our apology and agree to restore access? Not yet. Harrison raised an eyebrow. There's one more item on our proposal, I said. Gregory's resignation. The room went dead silent. Gregory shot out of his chair. Absolutely not. This is absurd. Sit down, Gregory, Harrison said quietly. I will not be forced out by... Sit down. Gregory sat. Harrison looked at me. That's a significant ask. Gregory created this situation. He cut my pay, dismissed my contribution, and breached our contract. Every dollar you've lost, every client you're losing, every point your stock has dropped, that's on him. I was implementing necessary operational changes, Gregory said. You were cutting costs without understanding what you were cutting, I shot back. You saw a $94,000 salary and thought, that's too much for IT, without bothering to learn that the entire company runs on systems I built. That's not strategy. That's incompetence. Patricia leaned forward. Gregory, be honest. Did you know Joel had built the platform before you made the compensation changes? Gregory hesitated. Did you? Patricia pressed. I knew he'd contributed to development, yes. Did you know he owned the patent? Longer pause. I was not fully aware of the licensing arrangement. So you cut the pay of the man who owns the intellectual property your entire operation depends on, without even reading his contract? Gregory had no answer for that. Harrison looked around the table. We need to vote. Joel's terms include Gregory's resignation. All in favor? Hands went up. 1, 2, 3. Patricia, the CFO from the manufacturing subsidiary. 2 other board members I didn't know. 6 out of 8. More than enough. Harrison turned to Gregory. You have until end of business today to submit your resignation. Make it voluntary, make it quiet, and we'll provide your full severance package. Otherwise, we terminate you for cause, and you get nothing. Gregory looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. This is insane. I've been CEO for 9 weeks. And in 9 weeks, you've cost this company over $1 billion in market value and nearly destroyed our entire operation, Harrison said. I think you've done enough. Gregory stood up, looked at me with pure hatred. You'll regret this. Probably not, I said. He walked out. Amanda followed. Harrison turned to me. The rest of the terms. We accept. $8 million, $2 million annually. Your salary restored with the raise, protected contract. We'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow morning. Kevin and I exchanged glances. One condition, I said. I want Patricia as the next CEO. Everyone looked at Patricia. She looked surprised. Joel, I'm not... You asked the right questions. You saw through Gregory's incompetence. This company needs someone who actually thinks before making decisions. Harrison nodded slowly. Patricia's been with us as an advisor for 3 years. Former CEO of 2 successful companies. It's not a bad suggestion. I'd have to think about it, Patricia said. Think fast, Harrison replied. We need stability immediately. Patricia looked at me. If I do this, you'll restore system access? The moment the contracts are signed and the licensing fee is transferred, access is restored. Then I'll do it. The board voted again. Unanimous. Wednesday morning, Kevin and I returned to sign the agreements. $8 million wired to an account Kevin had set up. $2 million annual licensing fee, paid quarterly. Salary, $131,600. Full benefits, stock options, protected contract. Gregory's resignation was already public. Stepping down to pursue other opportunities. Nobody believed it. Patricia was announced as interim CEO, with board approval to remove the interim after 90 days. I restored system access at 10:47 a.m. Wednesday. Every terminal came back online. Data intact. Processes resumed. The relief in that building was palpable. Thursday, the stock recovered 41%. Still down overall from the crisis, but climbing. Friday, business journals ran stories about the dramatic resolution. Some called it unprecedented. Others called it a cautionary tale about undervaluing key employees. I became a minor celebrity in tech circles. Got interview requests from major publications. Declined all of them. Kevin, on the other hand, was thrilled. I'm putting this case in my portfolio. Best contract enforcement I've ever done. Monday, I came back to work. Walking through those doors was surreal. People stared, Some smiled, some looked away. Everyone knew the story by then. It had leaked everywhere. My team, the developers and analysts who'd worked under me, actually applauded when I walked in. "Welcome back, boss," said Rachel, my lead developer. "Thanks, good to be back." Ron pulled me aside. "Joel, I'm glad you won. Gregory was going to gut this whole department. You saved us. I saved myself. You guys just benefited. Either way, thanks." Patricia called me to her office that afternoon. The office Gregory had occupied for 9 weeks was completely different now. The minimalist furniture was gone. The motivational posters were gone. It looked like an actual workspace. "Joel, sit." I sat. "I want to be very clear about something," she started. "What happened here was inexcusable. You built something extraordinary, and instead of valuing it, we treated you as expendable. I appreciate that. I also want you to know that changes are happening. Real changes. It is getting properly funded. Your team is getting the respect and compensation they deserve. And anyone who talks about you like Gregory did will be shown the door immediately." She slid a document across her desk. "This is your new contract. Everything we agreed to, plus one addition." I read it. The addition: annual performance review with guaranteed minimum 5% raise, plus discretionary bonuses based on system performance. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. You saved this company twice. Once by building the system, again by forcing us to recognize our mistakes. That's worth rewarding. I signed it. "One more thing," Patricia said. "I want your input on all major operational decisions going forward. Formal advisory role. If we're making changes that affect infrastructure, I want to hear from you first." "You're serious?" "Completely. Gregory's mistake was thinking he knew everything. I know what I don't know, and I don't know what you know. So I'm asking for your expertise." That actually meant something. Over the next few weeks, things stabilized. The stock recovered to about 85% of its pre-crisis value. Some clients came back. Others were lost permanently. But the company survived. Patricia turned out to be exactly what Apex needed. She rebuilt relationships with clients, restructured management to include more collaboration, and actually listened to department heads instead of just dictating changes. My team grew to 12 people. I made sure every single one got fair compensation and good benefits. I'd learned that lesson the expensive way. The $8 million sat in investments. I didn't go crazy with it. Bought a nicer apartment in Capitol Hill, paid off my student loans, started a college fund for my nephew, invested the rest conservatively. The $2 million annual licensing fee kept coming. Quarterly payments like clockwork. First payment hit in June. Watching that deposit clear was satisfying in a way I can't quite describe. People from my past reached out. Rebecca, my ex-girlfriend who'd left during the development phase, sent a text. "I saw the news. Always knew you were smart. Sorry I didn't see it then." I didn't respond. Ron's wife sent me cookies. Homemade. With a note. "Thank you for not letting them win." I ate the cookies. 6 months later, I'm still here. Stock recovered to 87%. Patricia rebuilt client relationships, fixed Gregory's mess, actually listened to people. My team's at 15 people now. Rachel got promoted to lead developer. 2 new hires from Microsoft who wanted to work somewhere that valued tech. The quarterly licensing payments hit like clockwork. First one cleared in June. 500,000 deposited. Didn't celebrate. Just nodded and kept working. July, Patricia called me in. 3 companies want to license your platform. Combined offer, $12 million annually. I signed deals with all 3 by August. My accountant called it the best contract structure he'd ever seen. October brought something unexpected. Gregory sued me, filed a complaint claiming I'd sabotaged operations and damaged his reputation. Wanted $8 million. Kevin called me laughing. Not a chance. We have everything documented. Case got dismissed. Judge called it frivolous. Gregory got hit with my legal fees. $47,000. Heard he sold his condo to pay it. November, Apex landed a $94 million logistics deal. Patricia sent me a message. "This happens because your system can handle it." The board voted me a $250,000 bonus. I split it with my team. December, Rebecca emailed wanting to meet. Said she'd made a mistake. I deleted it. July, I ran into Amanda at a coffee shop. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "I should have pushed back harder. You were doing your job. My job was to protect the company. I nearly destroyed it." She'd left Apex in January. Freelance consulting now. She asked if I was hiring. I said no. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. I moved cross-country and my parents ghosted me. When I started making good money, they texted, "Your brother needs money, we're on our way." They showed up having no idea what they were walking into. Sup Reddit. So I cut my family off after a lifetime of being ignored, and years later they showed up at my door like I owed them something. I, 32 male, was standing in my parents' living room last August, holding a $14 craft drink nobody gave a damn about. Tiger's game blasting at max volume because Dad's hearing was shot, but he refused to admit it. My brother Trevor was in the corner filming another TikTok about his entrepreneur grind, drop shipping Alibaba garbage at 400% markup to idiots who didn't know better. I'd just landed the biggest promotion of my career. Senior network architect, Fortune 100 cybersecurity firm, remote position, $180,000 base plus equity, moving to Austin. They're promoting me to senior architect, I said loud enough to cut through the TV noise. Moving me to Texas, $180,000 base. Nobody looked up. Not Dad, welded to his recliner. Not Mom, scrolling Facebook, probably heart-reacting Trevor's latest hustle post. Not Trevor, adjusting his ring light for optimal, authentic struggle lighting. I took a long pull from my drink, same one I'd been having for 5 years that they'd never once acknowledged, and felt something click in my chest. They didn't give a damn. I learned early I was the spare tire, the kid who existed to make Trevor look better. At 9, they threw my birthday party in the garage. Trevor needed the house for his YouTube setup, skateboard tricks for 47 subscribers. I ate grocery store cake surrounded by power tools. Mom poked her head in. "Be patient, honey. Trevor's building his brand." Got it. I didn't matter as much. At 13, I placed second in the state math competition. 6 months of prep. 2 buses to get there because Mom and Dad were watching Trevor film for his 83 subscriber channel. Brought home a trophy, medal, and certificate signed by the governor. Dad walked in on his phone talking to Trevor about lighting. "Cool, bud." Didn't even look. "Trevor needs help with this rig. His channel's about to blow up. Got a sponsor interested." For 83 subscribers. That was the dream. "Dad, Later, Evan. Trevor's building something real." Trophy sat on the kitchen table for a week. Nobody asked about it. I moved it to my room myself. I became the family fix-it guy. Router, laptop, Trevor's entire dropshipping site. 3 weeks of coding while he partied. He thanked me with a fist bump and posted on Instagram about grinding alone. No handouts, just pure hustle. The site I built. For free. Thanksgiving, Trevor showed up 4 hours late. Instagram livestream ran long. We waited. Watched the turkey turn to leather. He walked in wearing designer everything. Mom practically tackled him. "Sweetheart, you work so hard. Sit down. Evan, fix your brother a plate." I was already seated. Already hungry. Already exhausted from helping Dad smoke that turkey. Since 4 a.m. Stood up. Made his plate. Gave him the breast meat. Took the dry wings nobody wanted. Mom packed him the best leftovers. Handed me scraps in margarine containers. "He's got a son to feed. You're single. You don't need as much." I nodded. Something inside me was breaking. When I landed the architect role, I booked Giorgio's, the expensive Italian place. Invited everyone 3 weeks ahead. Confirmed twice. They came. But it wasn't about me. Mom pulled out her phone before I finished my appetizer. Helped Trevor research commercial kitchen spaces. Talked over me mid-sentence while I explained classified government contracts. Infrastructure stuff. Real work. They kept talking about square footage for Trevor's meal prep scheme. Dad asked for the check before entrees arrived. Not missing the Lions game for overpriced pasta. 35 minutes. That's all I got. Paid the $340 bill. Left 30% because the waiter looked embarrassed for me. After that, I buried myself in work. Cybersecurity architecture? Remote work meant I could be anywhere. The day I accepted the Austin offer, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Then came that Saturday in August. Michigan heat. House smelling like old carpet and desperation. Mom chasing Trevor's kid while Trevor filmed another entrepreneur TikTok. Dad half watching baseball. I opened my drink and said it clearly. They promoted me to senior architect. Moving to Austin. $180,000 base plus equity. The TV announcer screamed about a strikeout. Nobody looked up. I stood there. Condensation dripping onto my hand. For the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt clear. I could leave. And this house would sound exactly the same. That felt like a green light. 5 weeks later, my life was packed into a 16-footer. Turns out you don't accumulate much when you're invisible. Night before I left, I dropped a message in the family group chat. Leaving tomorrow morning. New job starts Monday. Austin bound. Red receipts showed they'd seen it. Mom, Dad, Trevor. By morning, nothing. I pulled out at 5:15 a.m., loaded the truck myself. Dad's back was acting up. Mom had errands. Trevor didn't even acknowledge my text about the furniture I was leaving behind. Halfway through Tennessee, Mom's text came through. We need you home this weekend. Trevor's moving inventory to a new warehouse. Heavy lifting, like I'd driven to Home Depot instead of moving 1,200 miles away. I deleted it, blocked the family group chat, kept driving. My apartment was downtown Austin, 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, 2 bedrooms, central air that didn't sound like a dying helicopter, $2,100 a month. Mine. First night I sat on the floor eating pizza from the box, watching the city lights flicker on. Nobody called asking for the router password. Nobody texted needing help moving furniture. Silence never sounded so good. The next few months fell into a rhythm. Morning runs along Lady Bird Lake. Work from home with colleagues who valued competence over family obligation. My team protected networks handling billions in assets, hospitals, power grids, banking systems, actual important work. Then I found Zuko, massive Belgian Malinois mix, 95 pounds of muscle and loyalty, shaking in a shelter kennel. The volunteer said he'd been returned 3 times. Too intense, too protective, too much dog. I knew that feeling. Took him home that afternoon. That's how I met Marissa. Dog park on a Wednesday evening. Her Doberman, Zeus, and Zuko started playing. That rough, growling, totally friendly but looks violent kind of play. Your dog's a beast, she laughed. That's what's up. Athletic, confident, zero makeup. The kind of woman who knew her worth and didn't negotiate it. She ran operations for a startup. Logistics, supply chain, the unglamorous stuff that actually makes companies function. We started meeting up after work. Dogs became inseparable. Slowly, so did we. With Marissa, I could talk about work without feeling like I was bragging. She listened, retained information, asked follow-up questions days later. How'd that penetration test go? She'd text on random Thursdays. She remembered. Holy heck. Then the ghosts found my address. Sunday morning text, family BBQ Saturday. Dad's turning 62. Show up early to set up tables and chairs. No question mark. No, we miss you. Just expectation. I showed Marissa. You gonna go? Heck no. Good. They don't deserve your time. Next day, the chat exploded. Missed calls, guilt texts, even Trevor. Dad's upset you bailed. Not cool, man. This from the guy who missed my college graduation for a pop-up shop that made $200. 3 years burned past. More promotions, hit $210,000. New friends who actually gave a damn. My apartment became home. Zuko claimed his spot on the couch. Marissa's running shoes lived by my door. I thought the past had finally stopped looking for me. Then my cousin Tanner crashed on my couch for 2 nights. Last morning, light hitting my place perfectly. Exposed brick, leather furniture, mounted TV, weight setup. Zuko sprawled on his dog bed. Tanner pulled out his phone. Dude, this setup is sick. Can I post it? Go ahead. He snapped the photo, added a caption. At my cousin Evan's spot in Austin. Man built something worth respecting. Posted it to Instagram. I barely looked at it. Didn't realize that single post, 412 likes in 3 hours, would blow up every boundary I'd built. By next morning, my phone was drowning in notifications from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. People asking what I was making now. Others wanting to know if I bought or rented. That furniture looks expensive. Cousins I barely knew commenting with fire emojis and killing it. Then Mom commented, so proud of our Evan. Always knew he'd succeed. We raised him to be independent and driven. Our. That word tasted like gasoline. Where was our during the math competition? The promotion dinner? The move? Our showed up when there was something to photograph. First text came Thursday night, 11:47 p.m. Evan, honey, we've been so worried about you. Can we talk? Mom. 3 years of near silence and suddenly she was worried. Tanner's post had been live for 72 hours. Had 500 plus likes now, which in my family's world was viral. Before I could respond, second text. Trevor showed me photos of your apartment. Very impressive. You must be doing extremely well financially. There it was. The real conversation. By morning, 6 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad, 2 from Trevor. Dad's voicemail was literally 8 seconds. Call your mother back. Family business. I didn't call back until Saturday afternoon. Let them stew. When Mom answered, her voice had that forced cheerfulness. Oh, sweetheart, finally. We were thinking about visiting. No, I said simply. Silence. She wasn't expecting that. Excuse me? I said no. You're not visiting. I moved 1,200 miles away for a reason. You want to talk? We can do it over the phone. Evan, we're your family. Family that ignored me for 3 years until Tanner posted my apartment online. So no, you're not coming to Austin. We already booked the flights, she said, voice going cold. Saturday morning, all 4 of us. My jaw clenched. Then cancel them. I'm not hosting you. It's non-refundable, she said, like that was my problem. We'll be there at 11. We can talk then. Mom, I'm telling you right now. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, rage building. She'd booked flights without asking. And now she was acting like my refusal didn't matter. Marissa looked up from her laptop. What happened? They booked flights to Austin. I told them not to come. She hung up on me. So don't let them in, she said simply. That's the plan. But I knew my family. They didn't take no for an answer. They'd show up anyway and make a scene until I caved. Not this time. Saturday came. I was ready. Doorbell rang at 11:20 a.m. Late, even when forcing themselves on me. I looked through the peephole. All 4 of them. Mom holding a Starbucks bag like a peace offering. Dad with cheap sodas. Trevor with Hudson looking tired and confused. I opened the door but kept my body in the doorway, blocking entry. I told you not to come, I said flatly. Mom's smile faltered. We flew all this way without my permission. That's not my problem. Evan, we're family, Dad said, trying to push past me. I didn't budge. Family that ignored me for 3 years. You're not coming in. Trevor stepped forward, voice aggressive. Bro, we flew here. Stop being a jerk and let us in. Or what? I asked, voice cold. You'll force your way into my home? Mom's eyes went wide, playing victim. We just want to see you. You want something. And seeing me is the price of admission. I'm not interested. Hudson tugged on Trevor's sleeve, looking scared. The kid didn't deserve this. But I wasn't responsible for his parents' choices. Mom's voice cracked. Please, sweetheart. We came all this way. Just let us in for a few minutes. I looked at them. All of them. Standing in my hallway with luggage, with expectations, with the same entitlement they'd always had. Part of me wanted to slam the door, but I knew they wouldn't leave. They'd camp out in the hallway, make a scene, bother my neighbors. Fine. They wanted in. They'd get exactly 2 hours. Then they were gone. 2 hours, I said. You get 2 hours. Then you leave. Understood? Mom brightened immediately. Of course, sweetie. I mean it. 2 hours. Not negotiable. I stepped aside. They practically rushed in, taking over my space like locusts. Mom swept past wearing too much perfume, already scanning my apartment like an appraiser, running her fingers over my furniture, checking price tags in her mind. Oh, sweetheart, look at you, she said, but her eyes were calculating square footage and rental costs. This is lovely, very upscale. What's the rent on a place like this? Translation. How much money do you have? Dad followed with cheap sodas, the cheapest stuff possible. I'd been drinking quality drinks for years. He'd never once remembered. Brought drinks for the game, he said, already looking for my TV. Treating my home like his personal sports bar. Trevor came in last, phone out, definitely taking video for his Instagram story. Yo, nice place. What's the square footage? Like 1,400? Downtown Austin, this has to be $2,600 a month minimum. Or did you buy? Because if you bought, don't. I cut him off, voice sharp. You're here for 2 hours. Don't spend it calculating my net worth. His smile faltered. Hudson immediately ran inside without being invited. Started touching everything. Grabbed at my TV remote, jumped on my couch. Zuko retreated to the bedroom, tail low. I checked my watch. Started the timer. We moved to the living room. Dad grabbed my TV remote without asking. Found the Tigers game. Cranked the volume. Nobody asked if I wanted to watch baseball. Mom settled onto my couch, my $3,200 leather sectional, and started the interrogation. So what's your salary now? You must be doing quite well to afford all this. Straight to it. No pretense. I'm comfortable, I said, jaw tight. Trevor laughed, that fake sound he made when fishing. Come on, man. You gotta be clearing $200,000 minimum. With equity? Maybe $250,000 total comp? He wasn't wrong, but I wasn't confirming anything. Why does it matter? I asked. Just curious, bro. Trying to understand the network architect game. Seems lucrative. It is, I said, when you actually finish your degree and work for it. Silence. Sharp. Uncomfortable. Mom forced a laugh. No need to be rude, honey. I'm not being rude. I'm being honest. Something this family struggles with. Trevor's face flushed. You know what? I came here thinking we could reconnect. You came here because Tanner posted my apartment, and you realized I have money. Let's not pretend this is about brotherhood. Hudson kept jumping on my furniture. I'd asked him twice to stop. He ignored me. Hudson, I said firmly. Last warning. Sit down or play quietly in the corner. Stop jumping on my furniture. Mom's face went tight. He's 7. He has energy. He can have energy without breaking my stuff. Don't talk that way around my son, Trevor snapped. Then control your son in my home, I shot back. The tension was thick. Mom looked offended that I wasn't playing the accommodating host. Dad kept his eyes on the TV like a coward. Trevor was scrolling his phone, probably posting about his toxic brother to his followers. 30 minutes in, I was already done with this. Mom kept pushing. Is Marissa paying half the rent? Are you two basically living together? That's none of your business. I'm just asking, sweetie. And I'm just not answering. Trevor looked up from his phone. Bro, you've changed. You used to be chill. I used to be a doormat, I corrected. I'm done with that. See? Trevor gestured at me. This attitude. This is what I'm talking about. You're acting like we're strangers. We are strangers, I said. You haven't texted me in 3 years. Don't know where I work. Don't know who I date. Don't know anything about my life. That's the definition of strangers. Mom flinched. That's not fair? It's accurate, I interrupted. You want to know what's not fair? Flying here uninvited after I explicitly told you not to come. That's not fair. Dad finally spoke, still facing the TV. We're your parents. We can visit our son. Not without permission, you can't. An hour in, the real conversation started. Mom shifted forward on the couch, hands folded. Practiced expression. Your father and I have been thinking about your brother's situation. Stop, I said. Whatever this is, no. You haven't even heard. Don't need to? The answer's no. Trevor set his phone down. Bro, just listen. I said no. I'm not funding your next failure. I'm not bailing out mom and dad's terrible decisions. I'm not your emergency fund. Mom's eyes widened. How dare you? How dare I what? Have boundaries? Refuse to enable your golden child? Actually expect to be treated like family instead of a checkbook? We raised you. No, I cut her off, voice cold. You raised Trevor. I raised myself. Big difference. Trevor stood up, angry now. You're really gonna sit there acting like you had it so hard? You got everything. Name one thing, I challenged. One thing they gave me that they didn't give you first. One time they put me first. One sacrifice they made for me. Silence. Complete damning silence. That's what I thought, I said. I checked my watch. Hour and 40 minutes. 20 minutes left. But I was done. Time's up, I said, standing. You need to leave. Evan, we haven't, Mom started. I don't care. You came here uninvited. I gave you 2 hours out of courtesy. Now you're leaving. We flew all this way. Your choice. Your problem. Not mine. I walked to the door, opened it. Out. Trevor grabbed Hudson, face red with rage and humiliation. You're really gonna do this? I really am. Doors open. Use it. Mom stood up, tears starting. That practiced emotional manipulation. After everything we've done for you? Like what? I asked. Specifically, name one thing. One sacrifice. She couldn't. Just stood there, mouth opening and closing. That's what I thought, I said. Leave. Dad finally stood, grabbing his jacket. You've become cruel. No, I said. I became honest. And you can't handle it. Trevor lingered at the door. We came here to ask for your help. I know, I said. That's why you came. That's the only reason you came. And that's exactly why the answer is no. Trevor's in trouble, Mom blurted out. Real trouble. He owes money. Not my problem, I said simply. He's an adult. He made choices. He can face consequences. He could lose everything. Good, I said. Maybe he'll learn something. Trevor's face went pale. You're really gonna let me fail? I'm gonna let you experience reality, I corrected. Something Mom and Dad never did. Consider it a gift. This is messed up. No, I cut him off. What's messed up is showing up uninvited, treating my home like an ATM, and expecting me to fund your delusions. What's messed up is 3 years of silence followed by demands for money. What's messed up is using a 7-year-old as emotional leverage. Hudson was crying now, confused and scared. Trevor, I said, voice dropping, take your son and leave. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to actually apologize. Not the kind where you're sorry I'm upset, the kind where you're sorry for what you did. He grabbed Hudson and walked out. Mom tried one more time. Evan, please. Out, I said. Now. She looked at Dad. He shook his head. Already halfway to the elevator. They left. I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it. Zuko came out from the bedroom, tail wagging, clearly relieved. My phone buzzed. Marissa, how'd it go? I typed back, exactly how I planned. Gave them 2 hours. Kicked them out when they asked for money. Her reply, proud of you. Want company tonight? I smiled. Yeah, bring Zeus. Dogs can celebrate too. I looked around my apartment. Mine. Actually mine. No guilt, no obligation, no performance, just boundaries. And I'd never felt better. I thought kicking them out would be the end of it. Thought they'd fly back to Michigan, lick their wounds, maybe learn something. I was wrong. Sunday morning, 9:47 a.m. Doorbell rang again. Through the peephole. All 3 of them. Again. Same desperate expressions. Hudson looking exhausted. I didn't open the door. Evan! Mom's voice muffled through the door. We know you're in there. We need to talk. I stayed silent. Waited. Evan, please. We flew all this way. We're staying in Austin until we work this out. My blood went cold. Staying in Austin? Open the door. Dad's voice. Gruff. Demanding. I pulled out my phone, texted, you need to leave. I told you yesterday. Not interested in whatever you're selling. Mom's phone buzzed. Watched through the peephole as she read it. We're not leaving until you hear us out, she called through the door. Trevor banged on it. Bro, stop being a coward. Open the door. I called building security instead. Yeah, I've got people harassing me in my hallway. They won't leave. Can you send someone up? 5 minutes later, a security guard arrived. Professional guy who'd seen this before. Folks, you need to leave. Resident doesn't want you here. We're his family. Doesn't matter. This is private property. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'm calling the police. They left, finally. But Mom texted, we're not giving up. We're staying at a hotel near the domain. We'll be back. I blocked the number. Found another text from a different number an hour later. This is your mother. Don't block me. We need to talk about this like adults. Blocked that one too. Then emails started. Then Facebook messages. Then LinkedIn attempts. Trevor tried reaching me through Tanner. Through old high school friends on social media. Through my company's main line. Claiming it was a family emergency. HR called me Tuesday afternoon. Evan, we had someone call claiming to be your brother. Said there was a family emergency and he needed to reach you urgently. There's no emergency, I said. He's harassing me for money. If he calls again, don't transfer it. Understood. Just wanted to verify. Day 5. I took Zuko for his evening walk. Same route we always took. Around the block, through the small park, back home. I didn't see them waiting until it was too late. Trevor stepped out from behind a parked van. Dad right behind him. Before I could react, Dad grabbed Zuko's leash and yanked it out of my hands. Trevor shoved me backward. Dad, the man who'd barely raised his voice my entire childhood. Now he was wild-eyed, desperate. Desperation does ugly things to people. What the? Shut up! Trevor's voice was different now. Ugly. Desperate. You want to play games? Fine. We'll play games. Dad was already walking away with my dog. Zuko was pulling back, confused, whimpering. Zuko! I started after them. Trevor blocked me, got right in my face. You're gonna listen now. We need that money. You're gonna give us $75,000 or we're selling this dog tomorrow. There's a guy who buys working dogs. Cash. No questions asked. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. You wouldn't. Try me. He smiled. Actually smiled. You've got 48 hours. Wire the money or the dog's gone. And don't bother calling the cops. By the time they do anything, Zuko will be in another state with no papers. You'll never see him again. They drove off, my dog's face in the back window, looking at me like I'd abandoned him. I stood there on the sidewalk for a long time. Then I went home and called my lawyer. Explained everything, voice steady, mind already working. They took my dog, threatened to sell him if I don't pay. That's theft and extortion. We need to call the police. I already called 911, gave them the hotel name and Trevor's plate number. But I held off on the full complaint until we confirm they're still there. If I push too hard now, they run and the dog's gone. Smart, what else? How much debt are my parents in? The house, everything. Silence. Then, I can run a search. Public records. Give me a few hours? I waited. The results came back at 11 p.m. Mom and Dad's second mortgage. $85,000 at 9.5% interest. Already 2 months behind. Foreclosure proceedings would start at 90 days. Their house was worth $240,000. Total debt, $195,000. Equity, $45,000. shrinking daily with fees and penalties. Trevor's business debts, $68,000 across 6 creditors, personal guarantees on everything. Mom and Dad had put their house up as collateral on $30,000 of his supplier debt. They were 60 days from losing everything, and they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Trevor texted the next morning. Clock's ticking. 36 hours. Don't test me. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer again. I want to buy my parents' house before the bank takes it. Fair market value, cash offer. That's unexpected. They wanted to play hardball. Fine. I'll show them what hardball looks like. I spent the next 24 hours preparing, had my lawyer draft the purchase offer, lined up the cash, called a real estate agent who specialized in distressed properties. At hour 44, Mom called from a new number. Evan, please. Trevor's serious. He found a buyer. They're coming tomorrow morning. I know, I said. I pulled your foreclosure filing from the county records, by the way. Interesting timing. What? Check your email. I just sent you a purchase offer for the house. $240,000. Cash. Closes in 2 weeks. Dead silence. You're... what? I'm buying your house. The one you're about to lose because you co-signed Trevor's disasters. Fair market value. More than the bank will give you at auction. Evan, that's not... We don't want to sell. You don't have a choice. You're 2 months behind. Bank's going to take it anyway. I'm offering you a way out that doesn't destroy your credit completely. I paused. But here's the thing. That offer expires in 72 hours. And if anything happens to my dog before then, if Trevor sells him, hurts him, or I don't get him back in perfect condition, I pull the offer. Let the bank have everything. Watch you lose the house you lived in for 32 years over your golden child's stupidity. You can't. I can, and I will. You wanted to play games with my dog? Fine. Now I'm playing games with your house. Your move. I hung up. Less than an hour later, my doorbell rang. Opened it to find Dad standing there alone. Zuko on a leash beside him. Zuko was home. That was non-negotiable. Dad looked broken. Couldn't meet my eyes. Just handed me the leash and walked away without saying a word. Zuko jumped on me, tail wagging, licking my face. I held him for a long time. Then I went inside and forwarded the purchase agreement to my lawyer. They'll sign, I said. Make sure it's airtight. Because here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't buying their house to save them. I was buying it so they couldn't keep using it against me. The purchase went through exactly as planned. Mom and Dad tried to negotiate, tried to add conditions, wanted to stay as renters at below market rates, wanted me to forgive the debt, wanted me to be reasonable. I wasn't interested in reasonable. Fair market rent is $1,900, I told my lawyer. That's the number. They can pay it or they can leave. Their choice. They're claiming financial hardship, asking for $800. Then they can find somewhere else to live for $800. Not my property. They signed. Had no choice. Bank was already circling. The day the sale closed, I got a text from Trevor. You think you won something? You just bought yourself a landlord headache. Have fun dealing with Mom and Dad as tenants. I smiled at that, because he didn't know the rest of the plan. 2 weeks after closing, I served my parents with a formal notice. Month-to-month tenancy. No lease. Rent due on the 1st. $1,900. Late fee of $100 after the 5th. Eviction proceedings begin after 30 days of non-payment. Mom called crying. You can't do this to us. We're your parents. You took my dog, I said. Threatened to sell him. Used him as a bargaining chip for money. You think I forgot that? That was Trevor's idea. And you went along with it. Dad grabbed the leash. You knew what was happening. You made your choice. Evan, please. We can't afford $1,900. Your father's only working part-time. I'm doing odd jobs. We're barely surviving. Should have thought about that before you bet everything on Trevor. We're your parents. You're my tenants, I said. Big difference. And if you can't pay, you've got 30 days to figure something out. The first month they paid. Scraped it together somehow. Second month they were late. I filed the late fee. Third month they couldn't make it. Trevor had moved in with them. All 4 of them in that house now, including Hudson. Mom begged for an extension. I gave them 10 days. Then I started eviction proceedings. My lawyer handled everything. Clean. Professional. By the book. Meanwhile, Trevor's creditors closed in. Without the house as collateral anymore. It was mine now. They had nothing to secure the debt against. Judgments piled up. Wage garnishment hit whatever he was making at his warehouse job. His BMW got repossessed from my parents' driveway at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. I watched the repo truck drive away from the property management app on my phone. There's a camera on the front porch now. The eviction notice got served on day 45. Mom showed up at my building that night. Security called me. There's a woman in the lobby. Says she's your mother. She's crying, sir. Tell her I'm not available. She says she'll wait, then call the police after an hour if she won't leave. I watched the security feed from my laptop. Watched her sit in that lobby for 3 hours, dabbing her eyes, looking at her phone, hoping I'd come down. I didn't. Eventually she left. Sent me an email that night. Evan, we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. We should never have let Trevor take your dog. Should never have threatened you. Should never have put him before you all those years. But please, don't take our home. Don't put us on the street. Your father's health is failing. Hudson needs stability. We're begging you. We're begging you, please. Mom, I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer with one word. Proceed. The eviction finalized 2 weeks later. Sheriff's Department gave them 72 hours to vacate. I didn't go watch. Didn't need to. Property management sent me photos after. Empty rooms. Some damage to the walls. They'd left trash behind. Took the refrigerator even though it came with the house. I had it fixed up. New paint, new appliances, professional cleaning. Listed it for rent at $2,100 a month. Had a tenant within a week. Passive income, $2,100 rent minus $280 property taxes. $150 insurance. $200 management fee. Over $1,400 a month in my pocket, free and clear. Trevor ended up in a motel. Then a shelter when the money ran out. Mom and Dad moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. Rent, $750. All 4 of them sharing that space. His Instagram went dark. No more posts about the entrepreneurial grind. No more motivational quotes. No more rented sports cars and designer clothes. Just silence. I should have felt bad. I didn't. Because I'd spent 32 years watching them sacrifice everything for Trevor's dreams, while ignoring mine. Watching them threaten to sell my dog like he was nothing. Like everything I loved was theirs to leverage. Watching them finally face consequences? That felt like justice. 8 months later, March in Austin, I was out with Marissa at a UT basketball game when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Trevor. Can we talk? Please. I'm begging. I showed Marissa. She raised an eyebrow. Begging now? Apparently. You gonna meet him? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. But another part, the part that remembered my dog's face in that car window, wanted to see what rock bottom looked like on him. Yeah, I said. I want to see this. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. Public. He looked destroyed. Gaunt. Clothes that didn't fit right. Shoes falling apart. Hands shaking when he sat down. I'm not here for money, he started. Good, because you're not getting any. I know I'm not. He couldn't look at me. I needed you to see what I've become. What we've all become. I sipped my coffee. Said nothing. Hudson's living with his mom full-time now. I lost custody because I couldn't provide stable housing. I see him twice a month. Supervised visits at a facility that smells like bleach. His voice cracked. He asked me why Grandma and Grandpa live in such a small apartment. I didn't know what to say. I still said nothing. Dad had a heart attack last month. Minor one. But they can't afford the follow-up care. Mom's working 2 jobs at 63 years old. They eat ramen for dinner most nights. He finally looked up at me. Eyes red. Face wet. And I did this. I did all of this. Yes, I said. You did. The dog thing. He shook his head. That was the worst moment of my life. Not when they arrested me. Not when I lost everything. The worst moment was watching you on that sidewalk as we drove away with Zuko. The look on your face. I'll never forget it. Neither will I. I'm sorry. The words came out broken. I'm so sorry. For everything. For 30 years of taking and never giving back. For thinking I deserved everything because Mom and Dad told me I was special. For taking your dog and threatening to sell him like some kind of monster. I was a monster. I am a monster. He was crying now. Really crying. The kind of crying you can't fake. Mom wanted me to tell you she's sorry too. She writes you letters she never sends. Pages and pages about how she failed you. How she chose wrong. How she wishes she could go back and do everything differently. I finished my coffee. Set the cup down. Dad too. He can't say it because he's too proud. But I hear him at night sometimes. Talking to himself. Saying your name. Saying he's sorry. Trevor wiped his face. Looked at me with something like hope. Is there any chance? Any chance at all we could, I don't know, start over? Not money. Not the house. Just Maybe a phone call sometimes. Maybe you could meet Hudson again. He still asks about Uncle Evan. Still has that toy car you gave him when he was 4. I looked at him for a long time. Thought about everything. 32 years of being invisible. 32 years of achievements that were never good enough. Zuko shaking in my arms after I got him back. Mom crying in my lobby while I watched on the security feed. Then I stood up. No. His face crumbled. Evan, please. You asked if we could start over. The answer is no. There's nothing to start over. There was never anything real to begin with. I was an ATM to you. A backup plan. A resource to exploit when the favorite son ran out of options. That's not... You took my dog. I said it quiet. Cold. Grabbed him off the street. Threatened to sell him to some stranger. Used the only living thing I actually loved as a bargaining chip for money. And now you want me to pretend that didn't happen? To pick up the phone on holidays and make small talk? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Tell Mom I got her message. Tell Dad I don't care about his nighttime apologies. Tell Hudson... I paused. Actually, don't tell Hudson anything. He'll figure it out when he's older. Figure out that his dad and his grandparents burned every bridge for money and then wondered why nobody came to visit. I started walking toward the door. Evan, wait. Please, I'm begging you. We're all begging you. I stopped. Didn't turn around. I know, I said. That's the difference between us. I never begged for anything. I just built something worth having. And you spent your whole life taking from people who did the work. We're family. No, we're not. Family doesn't threaten to sell your dog. Family doesn't show up demanding money when you haven't spoken in years. Family doesn't mortgage their house for the golden child and then come crying when it all falls apart. I finally turned to look at him. You're strangers who share my DNA. That's all you've ever been. I just didn't realize it until you made it impossible to ignore. I left him there, crying, alone, in a coffee shop full of people pretending not to watch. When I got back to Marissa, she looked up from her phone. How'd it go? They're still begging. You forgive them? No. I pulled her close. And I never will. She smiled. Good. Later that night, we were at my place. Our place now, and my phone buzzed 3 more times. Mom, Dad, Trevor again. Different numbers, same desperate messages. Please. We're begging. Just one more chance. I deleted them all without reading past the first line. Zuko jumped up on the couch, laid his massive head on my lap like he knew, like he remembered that week away from home. I scratched behind his ears, and he made that content sound that meant everything was okay. Outside, Austin glowed. My city, my life, my choice. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. This story is titled, My Parents Kicked Me Out for Their Golden Child, then demanded I keep paying rent and bills. So I made them regret it, and now they want my help so bad. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. This happened over the course of several years, and using fake names disclaimer. I, 32 male, always knew I was the backup son in my family. You know how some parents pretend they love all their kids equally? Mine didn't even try to hide their favoritism. My brother Alex was their pride and joy. Me? I was just there. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Minneapolis, my mom would literally beam whenever Alex walked into a room. She'd corner random people at church or the grocery store to brag about Alex's latest accomplishment, while I stood there like a damn shadow. When he left for college at Northwestern, she was depressed for months. Not exaggerating, she called him every single day like she was going through withdrawal or something. It was honestly pathetic to watch. It wasn't that they hated me. I just wasn't Alex. He was loud and played football and got all the attention with his charismatic personality, aka being an obnoxious loudmouth. I was more reserved but still athletic. I wrestled in high school and even placed at state twice, but somehow my trophies ended up in the basement, while Alex's participation ribbons from elementary school football got prime display space in the living room. I'm not even joking. This dude had a most improved certificate from 4th grade football hanging in the hallway until I moved out. I figured out pretty early that no matter what I achieved, I'd never measure up to St. Alex in their eyes. Even when I graduated with honors in business management and landed a solid job at a medical equipment distribution company, my mom's response was, "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Alex might be up for promotion at his marketing firm?" Mind you, Alex had been up for promotion about 5 times already, and somehow never got it. Probably because he spent more time networking at bars than actually working. But my parents would never acknowledge that. The worst part? I accepted it. I thought that's just how families worked. Someone gets to be the golden child, and someone has to be the spare. Guess which role I got stuck with? When I was 23 and had been working for about a year after college, my parents dropped what they thought was good news. They were retiring. Mom had been bouncing between random part-time jobs at clothing stores for years, and Dad was done being an insurance adjuster. Their brilliant plan? I'd move back home to help out until Alex had kids, then they'd move to Colorado to be near him. Fast forward 5 years. Alex still hadn't produced the grandkids they were desperate for. Actually, he was struggling big time. Him and his wife Megan could barely pay their bills in Denver. The last time I saw him was 2 Christmases ago, where he spent the entire weekend bitching about his condo, his boss, and basically his entire life while wearing designer clothes he couldn't afford. He'd show up in these $300 jeans and new watches while complaining about how the system was keeping him down. He barely acknowledged me, treating me like I was the family dog that was just there for background noise. Meanwhile, I was the one holding everything together. I had worked my way up to regional sales manager, started paying rent to help with their expenses, took care of the house, the yard, everything. I even remodeled their bathroom and built a deck in the backyard with my own 2 hands. Put in those composite boards that don't splinter or rot, did all the railings myself, the whole 9 yards. My life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. I had a good group of friends, played in a recreational hockey league, and was dating when I had time. But no matter what I did, my mom still talked about Alex like he was God's gift to humanity. When I closed a major account that boosted my commission by thousands, my mom's response was to ask if I could loan Alex some money, because he was going through a rough patch. The rough patch being that he'd leased a BMW he couldn't afford, and was now panicking about the payments. And this wasn't the first time, or the 5th, they'd asked me to bail him out. Every family gathering was the Alex show. If he bothered to call in on holidays, everyone would crowd around the phone like the president was on the line. If he deigned to visit, my parents would spend weeks preparing, getting his favorite foods, cleaning his old room like the queen was coming to stay. My birthday? Mom would make a box cake. Alex's birthday? She'd spend 3 days cooking all his favorites and invite the whole extended family. Then everything went to shit. A few months ago, Alex lost his job. Since him and Megan were already living paycheck to paycheck, maxing out credit cards to maintain their image, they were completely screwed. My mom acted like this was the best news ever. No joke, she was practically bouncing in her seat at dinner. "This is perfect," she squealed. "Alex and Megan can move in while he gets back on his feet. And maybe once they're settled, they'll finally start a family." My stomach dropped. The way she said it made it obvious she'd been waiting for this exact scenario for years. Not once did she ask what I thought about it. I was just expected to go along with whatever Alex needed, like always. I remember staring at my plate, pushing around the mashed potatoes and thinking, here we go again. Alex fucks up and everyone bends over backward to accommodate him. It got worse. A few nights later, they sat me down for a family meeting. They wanted me to move out. There just wasn't enough room for everyone, Mom said with this fake sweet voice. Besides, it's time for you to focus on finding a wife and starting your own family. But here's the kicker. They still expected me to keep paying rent even after I left. I just sat there, feeling like I'd been sucker punched. For 5 freaking years, I'd put my life on hold to help them. I'd been the responsible one while Alex lived his life hundreds of miles away. And now they were kicking me out so Golden Boy and his wife could take my place? Dad must have seen I was about to lose it because he quickly said I should take my time to think about it. But I didn't need time. For the first time in my life, I saw my parents for what they really were. It was never about being fair or appreciating what I did for them. It was always about Alex. I remember asking, dead serious, "So let me get this straight. You want me to move out of the house I've been maintaining and paying for so Alex can move in? And you still want me to pay rent after I leave?" Mom had the audacity to say, "Well, we're on a fixed income now, and Alex will need time to find a new job. It would just be until he gets back on his feet." "And how long will that be?" I asked. She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you know Alex. He's so talented. He'll find something in no time." Right. Just like all those other times he was about to hit it big. I'd heard that song before. By morning, that emptiness had hardened into pure rage. I kept replaying every family dinner where they talked about Alex instead of asking about my promotion. Every time Mom showed off his old high school jersey to visitors, while my wrestling trophies gathered dust in the garage. Every sign that I was just a placeholder until they could get their golden child back. And now they wanted me out, but still expected me to pay their bills? Hell no. I wasn't going to be their ATM anymore. I told them I'd think about it, but my mind was already made up. I was done being their backup plan. Over the next week, I quietly packed my stuff. Started with important papers and valuables, then clothes and other things I couldn't live without. I didn't tell them what I was doing because I knew I'd lose it if they gave me any crap about it. The thing is, I'd accumulated quite a bit of stuff over the years. Weights, equipment, books, clothes, all of it had to be cataloged and packed carefully. I'd built a nice collection of tools working on the house, and I wasn't about to leave them behind for Alex to pawn the minute I was gone. I carefully packed my granddad's old toolbox, the one real inheritance I'd gotten in this family, making sure every socket and wrench was accounted for. While packing, I looked for a new place to live. Since I'd been paying a big chunk of their mortgage anyway, I figured I could afford my own apartment. Found a decent place just 15 minutes from work, good layout, 2 bedrooms, and a balcony where I could grill. Most importantly, it was mine. I signed the lease on a Thursday and arranged to move in over the weekend, all while my parents thought I was thinking about their proposal. Little did they know I was methodically extracting myself from their lives. Leaving that night was intense. I waited until after midnight, partly because it felt like a prison break, and partly because I couldn't handle their questions or guilt trips. I had already moved most of my stuff gradually over the past few days, telling my parents I was reorganizing when they noticed boxes disappearing. This last trip was for my bed, the rest of my clothes, and my gaming setup. I left my house key on the kitchen counter with a short note. Found my own place. Don't contact me about rent. Simple, direct, and to the point. Everything our relationship wasn't. I loaded the last of my stuff into my truck and drove away without looking back. The next morning, I blocked my parents and Alex on literally everything. Phone, email, social media, even LinkedIn. Didn't want him trying to contact me through work connections. For the first time in years, I felt free. That first week in my new place was like stepping into a new life. I could leave my gym bag on the couch without mom complaining. I could come and go without explaining myself. I even started meal prepping properly and got back on my workout schedule without interruptions. I set up my weight bench in the second bedroom, got all my protein and supplements organized in the kitchen, and for once didn't have to explain to anyone why I needed so much chicken breast in the fridge. But of course, the peace didn't last. About 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from an unknown number. Almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It was my Uncle Rick. Rick and Dad had this competitive relationship since they were kids, but unlike my dad, Rick didn't bullshit. He'd always been straight with me, and I respected that. He was the one who taught me how to change my oil and fix a leaky faucet when Dad was too busy watching Alex's high school games. "Jake, what the hell, man?" he asked. "You just disappeared on your parents? They're about to lose the house." "What?" I was completely blindsided. "What are you talking about?" That's when Rick dropped the bombshell. Turned out Alex had been jobless for 6 months, not just a few weeks like Mom claimed, and my parents had been secretly sending him money the entire time. Not just small amounts, but thousands each month to keep both him and Megan afloat in their expensive condo. To make it worse, they'd taken out a second mortgage on the house without telling me. I could barely process what I was hearing. "So let me get this straight," I said, my knuckles white as I gripped the phone. "They borrowed against the house without telling me, then expected me to keep covering their mortgage while they kept bailing out Alex and Megan?" "That's exactly right," Rick confirmed. "And now they're panicking because they might lose the house if they miss more payments. You need to step up and fix this, Jake." I laughed, actually laughed. "Fix it? Why is that my responsibility?" "They're your parents, Jake," Rick snapped. "Family takes care of each other." "Really? Where was Alex when they needed help? He's been bleeding them dry for years, while I've been the one keeping the roof over their heads." Rick went quiet. He knew I was right. "Look, Rick, I appreciate you calling, but this isn't my problem. They chose Alex, like they always do. Now they can deal with the consequences." After I hung up, I sat there in shock, the truth sinking in like a stone. All those times they said they were a little tight this month, or asked if I could chip in extra for utilities. It wasn't because their retirement wasn't stretching far enough. It was because they were funneling money to Alex behind my back. While I was working overtime to help them make ends meet, they were enabling Alex's irresponsible lifestyle. The betrayal cut deep, really fucking deep. For days, I tried to process everything. The more I thought about it, the more betrayed and played I felt. I'd unknowingly been helping Alex and Megan stay afloat in their pretentious lifestyle while my parents funneled my rent money to them. And now, after digging this hole, they expected me to jump in and pull them out? This wasn't my problem. But then I started thinking about the house itself. I'd grown up there, put a lot of work into it, and a small part of me didn't want to see my parents lose it, even if our relationship was in the toilet. I'd spent weekends repairing the roof, replacing old wiring, fixing the plumbing, sweat equity that would all go down the drain if the bank foreclosed. Plus, if I was going to keep paying for something, I wanted it to actually benefit me, not just feed Alex's sense of entitlement. So I made them an offer. When I showed up at the house, Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad barely looked at me as he let me in. I wasn't surprised to see Alex and Megan sitting there too. Alex had that smug look on his face, like he'd already won some game I didn't know we were playing. He'd gained weight and was wearing a flashy watch that probably cost more than a month's rent. Typical Alex, broke as hell, but still had to keep up appearances. I know about the second mortgage, I said right away, standing with my arms crossed, watching their faces. Mom's hopeful expression immediately changed to guilt. Alex just frowned, looking confused. Rick told me everything, I added. Mom sighed. Rick needs to mind his own business. Maybe, but I'm glad he didn't. Otherwise, I'd still have no idea you were using my money to pay for Alex's expenses. Dad started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. I'm not here to fight or rehash the past. I have a solution that benefits all of us. I laid out my proposal. I would take over the house completely. In my name, handling the mortgage legally. No bullshit promises about someday. A real official transfer. They could continue living there, but only if Alex and Megan paid their fair share of rent. At least what I'd been paying since I was 23. Mom hesitated. This is our family home. We're not just going to sign it over to you like it means nothing. It's not nothing, I replied, keeping my voice steady. It's your chance to keep the house instead of losing it completely. Right now, the bank owns more of it than you do. If you keep missing payments, they'll take it back. This is your best shot at staying. Of course, Alex had to jump in. You can't just walk in and take something that doesn't belong to you. This is supposed to be my inheritance, he said, his voice getting louder with each word. You've always been jealous of me, trying to one-up me. Now you're using Mom and Dad's situation to steal what should be mine. I laughed right in his face. Your inheritance, Alex? You've barely set foot in this house in 10 years. Meanwhile, I've been here looking after Mom and Dad and paying the bills while you've been living your life 3 states away and bleeding them dry. His face turned red, but he didn't have a comeback. Just started sputtering about how I didn't understand his situation and how the job market was tough right now. Rich, coming from a guy who'd had 5 different jobs in the last 3 years, none of which he'd kept for more than 6 months. I'm not trying to steal anything, I continued, my voice calm but firm. But I'm also not going to keep throwing money into a sinking ship without anything in return. If you want to stay, you need to contribute. If not, that's fine. But I'm not paying for you to live here for free while I struggle on my own. The room went silent. Finally, Dad spoke. We'll think about it. I nodded. Take all the time you need. But remember, the bank won't wait. You're already months behind on payments. This is the only way you'll get my help. As I turned to leave, Alex couldn't help getting in one last dig. This is bullshit, he muttered. You've always been trying to prove you're better than me. I just smiled. I don't have to try, Alex. I just have to show up. The look on his face was priceless. I think that was the first time in our lives I'd actually stood up to him directly. Mom gasped like I'd slapped someone, and Dad just looked at the floor. But it felt good, damn good, to finally say what I'd been thinking all these years. For a week, I didn't hear anything. I figured they were still arguing about it. Or more likely, Alex was trying to convince them to hold out for a better deal, or find some other sucker to bail them out. Probably thought if they ignored me long enough, I'd cave and just give them money with no strings attached. That's how it had always worked before. Then, out of nowhere, Megan called me. Her voice was shaking with fear. She told me Alex hadn't paid a single cent toward the mortgage, even after they received a foreclosure notice. He kept insisting I was just trying to trick everyone into giving me the house and that it wasn't his responsibility. But Megan wasn't buying it anymore. I don't want to lose the house, Jake, she said, her voice trembling. I know your offer is fair. I've been trying to find a job, but Alex keeps saying I don't need to work, that something will work out. He spends his days playing video games and going out with his friends, while your parents are panicking about losing everything. If I don't do something now, I'll end up homeless. She went on to describe how Alex would leave the house at noon, claim he was networking, and come home drunk at 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Mom was still doing his laundry and making excuses for him, even as the foreclosure notices piled up. I actually felt bad for Megan. She wasn't a bad person, just stuck with my entitled brother. So I made her a new offer. Same deal as before with one change. Alex had to leave if he refused to pay rent. Megan could stay, but he was out. I can't kick my own brother out, I explained. but I can set terms for him staying in my house. If he can't meet those terms, he needs to leave. Megan agreed to present my offer to everyone. Part of me wondered if she was secretly hoping Alex would refuse so she'd have an excuse to get away from him. That next meeting was a total shit show. As soon as I brought up rent, Alex completely lost his mind. Jumped up from his chair, knocked over a coffee mug, and started screaming every insult he could think of, calling me a greedy bastard and saying I was manipulating everyone. He even got in my face, trying to intimidate me. But I just stood my ground. I'd been dealing with his temper tantrums our whole lives, and I wasn't about to back down now. "You think you're so much better than me?" he shouted, his face inches from mine. "You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. That's what this is about, isn't it? You're still that pathetic little kid who couldn't handle not being the favorite." I didn't take the bait. "This isn't about who's the favorite, Alex. This is about responsibility. You've had a free ride your entire life, and now the bill is coming due." "Fuck you," he spat. "I don't need your charity. I'm going to make it big any day now. I've got prospects." "Prospects don't pay the mortgage," I said simply. Mom and Dad tried to play peacemaker, but it was obvious they still sided with him. Mom kept saying, "Alex is going through a difficult time right now," while Dad just looked defeated, like he knew I was right but couldn't bring himself to stand up to Alex or Mom. Standing in the doorway, I said, "If you're not willing to accept my help, there's nothing more I can do. Good luck with the foreclosure." Walking away wasn't easy. I kept telling myself it wasn't my job to fix my parents' mistakes, but this annoying voice in my head kept whispering, "What if they lose the house? What if it's your fault?" But this time, I refused to let guilt control me. I'd done my part. I'd given them a way out. They chose to reject it. Their decision, not mine. Months passed, and my life got better. I started dating a physical therapist named Sarah, got promoted at work, and even started taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes 3 times a week. My apartment actually felt like home. For the first time in years, I realized how much I'd been missing. Nothing huge, just the simple freedom to live on my own terms. No one questioning why I needed so much freezer space for meal prep. No one making snide comments about my obsession with fitness. No one making me feel like I was taking up space that rightfully belonged to someone else. Then Megan called me once more, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. The bank was officially moving forward with taking the house. The foreclosure wasn't just a warning anymore, it was happening. Alex had refused to even consider my offer, and their arguments had gotten so bad the neighbors had called the police twice. "I can't do this anymore, Jake," she cried. "I have nowhere to go. Alex has maxed out all our credit cards, and his friends have stopped letting him crash on their couches. Your parents are having health problems from the stress. Your mom's blood pressure is through the roof, and your dad looks like he's aged 10 years in the last 3 months. Please, if there's any way you can help." She told me how Alex had been lying to everyone, claiming he had job interviews that never existed. He'd even borrowed Dad's emergency credit card and racked up charges at bars and restaurants. When confronted, he'd exploded in rage, screaming that everyone was against him and that he deserved better than this. I felt bad for Megan. My parents and Alex had created this disaster, not her. I decided to give it one last shot, but this time there was no room for negotiation. I would buy the house completely, but the title had to be transferred to my name immediately. Alex, Megan, and my parents could stay, but Alex would have to pay rent. If he refused, he had to move out. And I made it crystal clear I wasn't covering any of Alex's other expenses. "This is my final offer," I told Megan. "They can take it or leave it, but I'm not budging." To my surprise, my parents finally agreed. Guess their fear of losing the house was stronger than their need to protect Alex's ego. Even Alex didn't fight as much this time, though his face made it obvious he was seething. The day we signed the papers, transferring the house to my name, was surreal. Mom kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, like she was signing away a child rather than a house. Dad just looked defeated, shoulders slumped, signing where the lawyer pointed without even reading the documents. Alex wasn't there. Couldn't be bothered to show up for something this important. Typical. Just like that, I became the owner of the house I grew up in. The house I'd been helping to pay for since I was 23. The house that was supposed to be my inheritance someday. Someday had finally arrived, but not how any of us had expected. At first, things were tense as hell. Megan spent all her energy trying to keep Alex calm. Alex barely spoke to me unless absolutely necessary, mumbling under his breath whenever I came around. He'd make a big show of slamming doors and stomping around whenever I visited to check on the place. My parents kept their distance, which was honestly a relief. Mom would get this martyred look on her face, like she was suffering in silence whenever I walked in. Dad would just nod and retreat to the garage. But the problem started almost immediately. Alex never paid rent. Not once. Every month brought a new excuse. He was waiting on an interview, Megan's car needed repairs, or my personal favorite. He didn't think it was fair to pay rent in the house he grew up in, because it was his birthright. The first month I let it slide. Family emergency, he claimed. The second month I gave him a warning. Just waiting on a check, he insisted. The third month I gave him an ultimatum. You're being unreasonable, he argued. I gave him way more chances than he deserved. After 3 months of this bullshit, I finally evicted him. Not just a verbal get out. I went through the legal process, filed the paperwork, the whole 9 yards. I wasn't taking any chances with Alex trying to claim squatters' rights or some other legal loophole. When the eviction notice was served, you'd have thought I'd committed murder. Alex went ballistic, screaming that I was dead to him, that this proved I'd always hated him. Mom collapsed in tears, wailing about how her family was being torn apart. Dad just sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his hands. My parents were furious. They accused me of being heartless, abandoning family when they needed me most. But I'd heard it all before, and this time it didn't work. If they wanted to support Alex, they could leave with him. I told them exactly what I told Alex. This is my house now, I said firmly. I've given Alex more chances than he deserves. He's had 3 months to get his act together and hasn't even tried. I'm not running a charity here. He's your brother, Mom cried. How can you do this to your own flesh and blood? The same way you had no problem kicking me out to make room for him, I replied. The same way you lied to me about where my money was going for years. The same way you never once stood up for me when Alex treated me like shit our entire lives. That shut her up pretty quick. To my surprise, they actually did leave, reluctantly packed up and moved out. The only person willing to take them in was Uncle Rick, the same person who lectured me about how families should stick together. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Living in Rick's modest 3-bedroom house must have been miserable for my mom, and Dad had to get a part-time job at a hardware store just to pay bills. Alex, of course, went with them, still believing he was somehow the victim in all this. I heard through the grapevine that he was sleeping on a pull-out couch in Rick's home office, complaining constantly about the lack of privacy and how unfair his life was. Megan didn't last more than a week with them. One evening, she showed up at my door with a suitcase. I'm done, she said simply. I can't live like that anymore. Alex refuses to get a job, and your mom still treats him like he's 12. She makes his lunch every day, Jake. His lunch. He's 32 years old. Since she was genuinely trying to get back on her feet, I let her stay in the spare bedroom for a while. She found a job at a local boutique pretty quickly and moved into her own place soon after. Eventually filed for divorce. Can't blame her. Alex had been dragging her down for years. As for me, everything just got better from there. Owning the house gave me this security I'd never had before. For the first time, I had a place that was truly mine. I renovated the kitchen, converted Alex's old room into a home gym with a power rack, bench, full dumbbell set, the works, and built a fire pit in the backyard. I replaced the old carpet with hardwood floors, painted the walls, and finally fixed that leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom that Dad had been meaning to get to for a decade. A year later, my girlfriend Sarah, 28, moved in with me. We got married in a small ceremony that I didn't invite my parents or Alex to. We've been killing it ever since. She opened her own physical therapy practice, and I started my own medical equipment distributorship after learning the industry inside out. Then, about 6 months ago, the karma hit. I was leaving the gym when my phone rang. Another unknown number. It was my dad. Jake, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I know we haven't talked in a long time, but we need help. Turns out Rick had finally had enough of their drama and Alex's refusal to contribute anything. He'd given them 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Mom had been diagnosed with high blood pressure from the stress, and Dad's part-time job barely covered their medications. What about Alex? I asked. Where's he in all this? Dad sighed. He moved to Florida with some friends. Said he needed a fresh start. He hasn't called in months. I almost laughed. Of course, Alex had bailed the moment things got really tough. The golden child had abandoned the throne when it became too much work to sit on it. So now you're calling me? I asked. After everything? Son, please. Dad's voice cracked. We were wrong. We've always been wrong about you. You were the one who was there for us. And we chose Alex every time. I don't expect you to forgive us, but we have nowhere else to go. For a moment, I thought about telling them to figure it out themselves, just like they told me to do when I was standing up for myself. But I'm not them. I'm better than that. There's a small apartment over the garage that I've been renovating, I said finally. You can stay there temporarily, but there are conditions. You pay what you can for rent, Even if it's just a few $100. You don't mention Alex to me or Sarah, and you acknowledge openly that you were wrong. There was silence on the other end. Then, thank you, Jake. We don't deserve it, but thank you. They moved in last month. It's been weird. Mom cried when she saw all the improvements I'd made to the house. Dad actually shook my hand and looked me in the eye for the first time in years. They've been walking on eggshells around me, which is a complete reversal from how things used to be. Last week, I overheard Mom on the phone with one of her friends from church. My son Jake owns his own business now, she was saying, with that same proud tone she used to reserve only for Alex. He was always the responsible one. It shouldn't matter, but somehow it does. Mom's been trying to make amends in her way. She brings dinner over sometimes, or offers to help Sarah with the garden. Dad's been more direct. He actually sat down with me last weekend and apologized. Said he'd always been proud of me but didn't know how to show it. Said he'd let Mom's obsession with Alex dictate our family dynamic for too long. It was too little, too late in many ways, but it was something. As for Alex, last I heard, he got fired from his bartending job in Miami and was asking Mom for money again. She told him she couldn't help him anymore. Baby steps, I guess. 2 weeks ago, I got an email from Alex. Just one line. I hope you're happy now that you've turned everyone against me. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh with them, but then I remember all those years I spent as the afterthought, the backup plan, the safety net. I refused to keep being the responsible one while getting nothing in return. The house that was supposed to be Alex's inheritance? It's where my kid will be growing up soon. Sarah's pregnant with our first, a boy. And trust me, if we have more children later, they'll all be treated equally. Edit update, holy shit, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and support. A lot of you have asked for updates about Alex, so here's the latest. He's back in Minnesota now, living in some shitty apartment and working at a cell phone store. Still calls Mom regularly asking for loans that everyone knows will never be repaid. Last week he had the balls to message Sarah on Facebook, trying to get her to talk some sense into me about family obligations. She blocked him immediately. Dad's actually been stepping up more lately. He's fixing up the apartment above the garage, making it more comfortable for them. Mom's still mom, still makes excuses for Alex, still gets that martyred look sometimes, but she's making an effort with Sarah, which I appreciate. As for me, business is booming, Sarah's pregnancy is going well, and I'm sleeping just fine at night, knowing I finally stood up for myself. Some of you called me an asshole for how I handled things, and maybe I was. But after 30+ years of being the family doormat, I'm okay with that. Edit 2. For those wondering about Megan, she's doing great. Got her own place, started taking classes at community college, and is dating a decent guy who actually has a job. We still grab coffee occasionally. She's actually becoming friends with Sarah, which is a plot twist I didn't see coming. And yes, I did change all the names in this story. Not that Alex would ever read anything longer than a tweet, but better safe than sorry. At a family dinner, my sister's fiance humiliated me while everyone laughed. What he didn't know was that I was his boss, and I was about to destroy him. Hey, Reddit. So I was at my family dinner when my sister's fiance mocked me, then started bragging about the fraud he's committing. He had no idea he was digging his own grave. Grab your popcorn and enjoy. This is gonna be fun. Name's Kai, 34 male, and I run a large freight and logistics operation. Fleet of 800 trucks, warehouses in every major port from Seattle to San Diego. My family thinks I drive a forklift. My mom genuinely believes I work in a warehouse doing manual labor. My sister Laura calls me the family failure. To them, I'm the college dropout who wasted his potential. The reality? I own the warehouses. My penthouse overlooks the harbor where my ships dock. Laura was always the golden child. Honor roll, corporate job Mom bragged about. She got married young, divorced 3 years later when it didn't work out, and somehow that became another chapter in the Laura can do no wrong story, while I stayed the disappointment. Now at 29, she was engaged again, and Mom was throwing this massive engagement dinner. So there I was at Mom's dining room on a Saturday night. The spread was ridiculous. Mom had gone all out. Laura held court in the center, showing off her ring. Her fiancé was late. I was nursing water in the corner when my sister spotted me. Kai, you actually came. Got the invite. Figured I'd see what the fuss was about. You couldn't have worn something nicer? This is supposed to be formal. I'm comfortable. Try to be pleasant tonight. Elias's family is very successful. His dad owns dealerships in Oregon. They're real business people. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Laura practically sprinted to the door. Elias Gallagher made an entrance. Mid-30s, overly gelled hair, charcoal suit that fit him wrong, big, flashy watch. Behind him came his buddy from work. The guy looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place him right away. Dark hair, kept glancing around like he was expecting something. Elias was already working the room. Laura introduced him to everyone. "This is Elias, Regional Operations Manager at Coastal Freight." Uncle Billy lit up. "Coastal Freight? That's a big operation. Been there almost 3 years. When I came in, the place was a mess. But I've been implementing new systems, streamlining processes. Last quarter, we improved efficiency by 30%. That was a lie. His division's efficiency was up 8%, and only because we'd integrated their routing software with our parent company's system after the acquisition 9 months ago. Elias's buddy caught my eye from across the room. Recognition flickered across his face, then confusion, then what looked like panic. He quickly looked away. Elias kept talking for another 10 minutes. His buddy finally slipped away and headed straight for my corner. "Kai Parker," he said quietly. "Owen Hayes, Fleet Management at Coastal. I recognized you from the company newsletter after the acquisition." That's where I knew him from. "Owen, small world." He glanced back at Elias. "Does he know who you are?" "Pretty sure he thinks I'm Laura's loser brother." "This is bad. Elias has been bragging for weeks about marrying into the Parker family. Says his future brother-in-law has connections at the parent company. He's been acting like a big shot, demanding special treatment, saying he's got pull in corporate." I almost laughed. "Laura makes maybe $75,000. Mom's a retired teacher. Where'd he get the idea we're connected?" "No clue, but there's something else." He leaned closer. "Elias has been running a side operation, using company trucks for unauthorized hauls. Started noticing it 2 months ago. Trucks leaving late at night, routes that don't match manifests, fuel usage that doesn't line up. Drivers mentioned Elias approaching them about extra work. Cash paid, off the books." I paused. "What are you talking about?" "I'm telling you." "What's he moving?" "Consumer electronics from what I've heard. Gaming consoles, tablets, laptops. Small loads, maybe 3 or 4 pallets per run. Gray market stuff. He's using our trucks, our fuel, our insurance for personal profit." "How many drivers?" "3 that I know of. Pays them $200 cash per run." "All right, let's talk about this later." Mom got everyone seated 20 minutes later. Laura and Elias at the head like royalty. Mom's friend Cheryl fawning over Elias. Me stuck at the far end next to Uncle Billy, and across from Cousin Beth with her phone. Owen ended up in the middle, shooting me looks that said, "Do something." But I wanted to see how deep this hole went first. The food came out. Mom had gone all out with catering. Elias made a show of complimenting everything while reminding everyone about his fine dining experience. He couldn't shut up about how important he was. So I told the client, "Times change. You need someone with vision." And they signed. $2.8 million contract. Mom was eating it up. "You must be so valuable." Operations runs through me at this point. The old management didn't know what they were doing. Since I took charge, we've streamlined everything. Efficiency up 30%, cost down 25%. I bit my tongue. He kept parroting the same efficiency up 30% line like it was gospel. I knew the real number, 8, and that was because of my integration, not him. "What kind of work do you do, Kai?" Cheryl asked. "Freight and logistics. Trucks, warehouses." "Oh, like a truck driver?" "I work with inventory management." Beth looked up. "Kai works in a warehouse, right?" "I manage inventory," I said. "Steady work," Elias said with his smug smile. "Not everyone's cut out for management roles." Uncle Billy jumped in. "Elias is right. You've always been more follower than leader, Kai." Kai's being modest," Mom said. And for a second, I thought maybe she was going to defend me. "He works very hard at his warehouse job. Very physical work, isn't it, sweetheart?" "It keeps me busy." "Must be tough," Elias said, leaning back with this smug grin. "The labor shortage in logistics is brutal right now. Hard to find good workers willing to do manual labor. Good for you sticking with it." "I manage," I said flatly. "I'm sure you do. But you've got to have ambition. That's how you avoid getting stuck in the same position for years." Uncle Billy jumped in. "Elias is right, Kai. You should be thinking about your future. You're what, 34? 35? Time's running out to make something of yourself." "I've got prospects," I said. Laura laughed. "Kai, come on. You dropped out of college, bounced around different jobs, and now you're doing warehouse work. Let's be honest about where you are in life." "And where's that?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Behind," she said simply. "You're behind, and you've been behind for years. It's okay to admit it. Not everyone's going to be successful. Some people are just meant to do the grunt work while others lead. The table went quiet. Mom jumped in. Now, Laura, your brother works very hard. We're all proud of him in our own way. Of course, Elias said smoothly. Every operation needs good workers. The backbone of the industry, really. Nothing wrong with honest labor. It's just different from executive work. He was being condescending beyond belief, but doing it in that smooth way. Owen was staring at his plate, jaw tight. I could tell he wanted to say something but was holding back. So, Elias, I said casually, this $2.8 million contract you mentioned, which client was that? He straightened up, clearly happy to talk about himself more. Peninsula Manufacturing. Been chasing them for months. Finally got them to switch carriers last week. Peninsula Manufacturing. I knew that name. They'd been one of our clients for years, long before we acquired Coastal 8 months ago. The $2.8 million wasn't a new contract. It was their standard annual renewal that our sales team had locked in months before Elias even knew about it. Impressive, I said. You must have really wowed them. It's all about relationships, Kai. These are skills you develop in management. I bet. Elias continued, getting into it now. I've been thinking about the labor situation. We've got way too many inefficiencies in our warehouse operations. Too many workers standing around, too many breaks, too much overtime. If I had my way, I'd cut the workforce by 30%, implement stricter metrics, really crack down on the freeloaders. That's the kind of bold decision-making that separates managers from workers. He was talking about cutting my employees. People who worked their tails off every day, who had families and bills and lives, and he wanted to slash their jobs to make himself look good on some efficiency report. The conversation kept going. Elias kept talking. His deals, his strategy, his vision. Owen was uncomfortable. At one point, he caught my eye and mouthed, "Do something." But I wasn't ready. I wanted to see exactly who Elias was before I dropped the hammer. After the main course, Mom brought out dessert. So Kai, Elias said, do you have any career goals? Or are you settled where you are? I'm comfortable, I said. But comfortable isn't ambitious. What's your 5-year plan? I've got some projects in the works. He smiled. Projects aren't the same as strategy. Elias is very goal-oriented, Laura added. He knows exactly where he's going and how to get there. And where's that? I asked. Elias leaned back, spreading his arms. Vice President of Operations within 3 years. Regional Director within 5. Eventually, executive level, maybe even ownership stake in a major logistics firm. The key is positioning yourself correctly. Owen actually winced, because he knew what I knew. Elias wasn't getting promoted. His performance reviews were mediocre. He'd been written up twice. The streamlining he bragged about was creating discrimination complaints. Ambitious, I said. You have to be in this industry. It's cutthroat. The weak get pushed aside. The strong rise to the top. Beth finally looked up from her phone. Kai, you should ask Elias for career advice. Maybe he could get you a better position at his company. Oh, that was rich. Actually, Elias said, you know what? I could make that happen. I'm always looking for reliable workers. Kai, if you're serious about improving your situation, I could probably get you into our warehouse. Entry level, obviously, but it's a foot in the door. Better than whatever situation you're in now. The table went quiet. Everyone looking at me, waiting. Laura looked gleeful. Mom looked hopeful. Owen looked like he was about to have a stroke. That's generous, I said slowly, setting down my fork. Let me think about it. Don't think too long, Elias said with a laugh. Positions like that fill up fast. Strike while the iron's hot. I'll keep that in mind. Good man. Elias raised his glass. To family, and to new opportunities. Everyone clinked glasses. I lifted mine but didn't drink. Owen was the only one not celebrating. He'd gone pale, jaw clenched, fork gripped tight. He looked at me with a question in his eyes. Are you going to stop this? Not yet. Because I just figured something out. This wasn't just about Elias being a fraud and a thief. This wasn't even about him humiliating me in front of my family. This was about something I'd been ignoring for years. My family genuinely believed I was nothing. They believed it so completely that Elias offering me an entry-level warehouse job at my own company seemed like charity to them, and they were all so pleased about it. Actually, I said, and something in my tone made Owen sit up straight. Before we toast to new opportunities, I'm curious about something, Elias. He turned to me, still riding high. Sure, shoot. You mentioned this side business earlier, the import-export thing. How's that going? The smile flickered for a second. It's in development. Still working out the details. What kind of products are you looking at importing? Various things. Electronics mostly. Consumer goods. It's a gray area right now, lots of moving parts. He was trying to sound vague and mysterious, but I could hear the nerves underneath. Electronics, I repeated. That's interesting. Are you using Coastal's distribution network for any of that? Or keeping it completely separate? His smile froze. Why would I? That would be inappropriate. Right, absolutely. That would be inappropriate. And probably illegal. I took a sip of water. So you're keeping it completely separate? Of course. His voice had gotten sharper. I'm not sure why you're asking all these questions about my personal business ventures. Just curious. You know, since I work in logistics too. I smiled. That made him uncomfortable. After dinner, everyone moved to the living room. Elias was talking about some business trip to Phoenix. Laura was showing off her ring. I found Owen on the back patio. You okay? I asked. He looked at me like I was crazy. Am I okay? Dude, you're the one getting roasted in there. Why aren't you saying something? I will. Just not yet. I leaned against the railing. Tell me more about this side business of Elias's. Owen hesitated, glancing back at the house. I don't have all the details. Just rumors, really. But word around the office is he's been using company resources for personal business. Trucks, warehouse space, even some of the drivers. There's talk he's moving product through our network without authorization. What kind of product? That's what I can't figure out. It's not showing up on any manifests, so either he's really good at hiding it, or it's not going through official channels at all. Fraud. He was committing freight fraud, using my company's infrastructure to run his own operation. The ball's on this guy. How long has this been going on? A few months, maybe? It ramped up after the acquisition. I think he figured with all the chaos of integration, nobody would notice. Somebody noticed. Owen nodded. I figured you'd want to know. That's actually why I came tonight. When Elias mentioned he was meeting his fiance's family and said the name Parker, I thought maybe it was worth checking out. Didn't realize it was going to be this dramatic. Here we are. So what are you going to do? I thought about it. I'm going to let him hang himself, I said. But I need proof first. The side business, the fraud, all of it. Can you help with that? He grinned. Man, I thought you'd never ask. I've been documenting everything I could find. Figured someone upstairs would eventually want to know what this guy was up to. Send it all to me. Everything you've got. Consider it done. He paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how they're treating you in there. It's messed up. It's educational, I said. We went back inside. Elias was in the middle of another story. This one about how he'd revolutionized the scheduling system at Coastal. Laura was laughing at something Cheryl said. Mom was refilling coffee cups. Nobody noticed we'd been gone. I sat back down in my corner spot, pulled out my phone, and started making moves. Sent a message to my chief financial officer requesting a full audit of Coastal's operations, specifically Elias's division. Sent another to my head of security, asking for surveillance on warehouse activities after hours. Copied my legal team on both. Then I did something petty. I pulled up Elias's employee file, reviewed his performance metrics, his attendance record, the 2 disciplinary notices he'd received. Started building a case for what was coming. Owen sent me a text. Check your email. Sent everything I had. I opened my email on my phone. 3 attachments. The first was a spreadsheet tracking unusual truck movements. The second was a series of warehouse access logs showing Elias entering facilities at odd hours. The third was a folder of photos, showing Elias meeting with people I didn't recognize in the parking lot of one of our warehouses. It was enough to start an investigation. It wasn't enough to prove anything conclusively, but it was a start. I looked up and found Elias watching me. Everything okay over there, Kai? You've been awful quiet. Just checking some messages. Work stuff? On a Saturday night? He laughed. That's the problem with hourly work, man. You're never really off the clock. I'll keep that in mind. You should. Life's too short to be tied to a time clock. He stood up, stretched. Speaking of work, Kai, if you're serious about that position I mentioned, I'll need your resume. Just shoot it over to me, and I'll walk it through HR personally. Laura beamed at him. That's so generous of you, honey. Well, family takes care of family, right? Elias said, putting his arm around her. The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Mom actually started tearing up. Elias, that's so kind of you. Kai, isn't that wonderful? You should really take him up on that. I looked at them. I'll think about it, I said again. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. Email from my chief financial officer. Got your request. We'll have preliminary audit results by Monday morning. Flagging some irregularities already. This could be bad. Another buzz. Head of security. Already had eyes on this guy. You're going to want to see what we found. Sending report now. I opened the attachment, started reading, and had to stop myself from laughing. Elias wasn't just running a side business. He was running a smuggling operation. Nothing major, nothing that would get federal attention, but enough to be seriously illegal. He was using our trucks to move untaxed goods across state lines, selling them through an off-books network, and pocketing the profits. The amounts weren't huge by my standards, maybe $43,000 over 3 months, but it was enough to put him away for a while, and he'd been stupid enough to do it all using company equipment with GPS tracking. I had him, dead to rights, on multiple counts of fraud, theft, and smuggling. All I had to do was decide when to drop the hammer. Monday morning came fast. I spent most of Sunday reviewing everything Owen and my team had sent me. The evidence was overwhelming. Elias had been using Coastal's trucks and warehouse space to move his product. Turns out it was wholesale consumer electronics he was buying cheap and reselling without proper licensing or tax documentation. He'd recruited 3 drivers to help him, paying them cash under the table. He'd been falsifying manifests, manipulating route schedules, and using our fuel cards for his personal vehicles. The guy had even been storing some of his inventory in our warehouse, tucked behind legitimate cargo where he thought nobody would find it. My legal team had a field day with it. By Monday afternoon, they'd prepared a case file that would make any prosecutor's mouth water. We had timestamps, GPS tracking logs, security footage, financial records, sworn statements from concerned employees. But I wasn't going to the cops. Not yet. I had something else in mind. I called Laura on Monday evening. Kai? She sounded surprised. What's up? Hey, I was thinking about what Elias said at dinner. About the job opportunity. Oh my God, really? Her voice jumped 3 octaves. That's amazing. Yeah, well, I figured maybe it's time to make a change. Elias said I should send him my resume? Yes. Send it to me. I'll make sure he gets it. This is going to be so good for you. Maybe this is the wake-up call you needed. Maybe so. Can you do me a favor, though? I'd like to come by Coastal and see the operation. Get a feel for the place before I commit. That's actually a good idea. Very mature of you. Let me check with Elias, but I'm sure he'd be happy to show you around. When were you thinking? Tomorrow work? I'll text you. She texted me an hour later. Elias says Wednesday at 2 p.m. He's clearing his schedule to give you the full tour. He's really excited to help you, Kai. This is really nice of him. Wednesday at 2 p.m. Perfect. I spent Tuesday making preparations. Called my executive team into a conference room, laid out the situation. My vice president of operations, Natalie, nearly choked when I told her about Elias. He's been running a smuggling operation through our network, and he's engaged to your sister? That about sums it up. This is going to be messy. Oh, it's going to be spectacular, I said. But here's what I need from you. I laid out the plan. Natalie listened, took notes, asked a few questions. By the end, she was smiling. You're cold-blooded, you know that? I prefer thorough. When you take him down, can I watch? You're literally going to be there for it. Wednesday at 1:45 p.m., I pulled up to Coastal in my beat-up pickup. Wore my usual jeans and flannel. Looked exactly like what Elias expected. Elias was waiting in the lobby, all smiles. Kai, right on time. Ready for the grand tour? Absolutely. He led me through the facility, talking nonstop. Showed me the warehouse, loading docks, dispatch office. Introduced me to workers who looked confused. We ended up in his office. Small space, cluttered desk. He sat behind his desk, gestured for me to sit in the guest chair. So, he said, leaning back and putting his hands behind his head. Impressions. It's impressive, I said honestly. Bigger operation than I expected. Yeah, we move serious volume through here. And this is just one facility. Coastal has locations up and down the coast. Of course, since we got acquired, we're part of something even bigger now. Parker Transport Group. Ever heard of them? Can't say I have. Major player. They own half the freight companies on the West Coast. The acquisition was actually great for us. More resources, better technology, expanded network. Good example of how being part of something bigger can level you up. Sounds like you're moving up in the world. That's the plan. And with Laura's family connections, well, let's just say I'm positioning myself strategically. He winked. Between you and me, your sister comes from some serious money. She's been modest about it, but I've done my research. The Parker name carries weight in certain circles. I almost laughed. He thought we were rich. Thought marrying Laura was going to open doors for him. The delusion was insane. So about that position, I said. What exactly would I be doing? Warehouse associate to start? Loading, unloading, inventory management? It's physical work, but it pays decently, and the benefits are good. And if you prove yourself, if you show initiative and reliability, there's room to move up. I started on the floor myself before working my way into management. That was a lie. Elias had been hired directly into a supervisor role, but I let him have it. What about the schedule? Typical warehouse hours. Early mornings mostly, some swing shifts. You'd be punching a clock, obviously, but like I said, it's steady work. He was practically glowing. The great Elias Gallagher, savior of lost causes, generously offering his loser future brother-in-law a chance at redemption. That's really generous of you, I said. Hey, family takes care of family. And besides, Laura would never forgive me if I didn't help you out. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Between us? She's worried about you. Thinks you've been drifting, lacking purpose. She asked me specifically to look out for you. So this isn't just a job offer, Kai. This is an intervention. An intervention. That was a new one. My phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. In position. Ready when you are. Listen, Elias said, completely misreading my expression. I know this might feel like charity. I get it. Pride can be tough to swallow. But sometimes you've got to admit you need a hand up. You're absolutely right, I said, standing up. Sometimes you do need help. And sometimes you need someone to show you reality. He blinked, confused by my tone. What? Tell me something, Elias. This side business you've been running. The one using Coastal's trucks and warehouses without authorization. How's that going? The color drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. The untaxed electronics. The off-books drivers. The falsified manifests. Ring any bells? He stood up, trying to look indignant. That's insane. Who told you that? That's slander. I could sue. You could, but you won't. Because it's all true. And we both know it. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder of evidence. Here's you meeting with your suppliers in our parking lot. Here's the inventory you've been hiding in Bay 7. Here's the GPS tracking logs. Here's 3 drivers willing to testify about the cash payments you've been making them. Elias's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. But here's my favorite part, I continued. You know Coastal got acquired, right? Became part of Parker Transport Group? What does that have to do with everything? Because Parker Transport Group? That's mine. I own it. I founded it. And Coastal Freight, along with every other subsidiary under that umbrella, also mine. He sat down hard. You're bluffing. Am I? I walked to his office door, opened it. Natalie was standing there with 2 security guards and Owen. Mr. Parker, Natalie said, we've completed the audit. Would you like the highlights? Elias looked like he'd seen a ghost. Elias Gallagher, I said, my voice changing from casual to business. As of right now, you're terminated from this company and all Parker Transport Group subsidiaries for cause. Theft, fraud, misuse of company property, and running an illegal smuggling operation. Security will escort you from the premises. Your personal belongings will be mailed to you after they've been searched for company property. You can't do this, he whispered. Laura will what? Defend you? After she finds out you've been lying to her? Using her? He tried one more time. I'll fight this. I'll hire an attorney. This is wrongful termination. It's not, and you know it. But please, by all means, get an attorney. They'll love explaining to you exactly how much trouble you're in. Oh, and Elias? I smiled, cold and sharp. That job offer you made me? Consider it retracted. Turns out I'm not a good fit for your organization. Security took his arms. He didn't resist. Just stared at me like he couldn't process what was happening. Owen stepped forward. For what it's worth, man, I tried to warn you. You should have been nicer to the warehouse guys. We talk. They led Elias out. Natalie handed me a folder. Full inventory of the stolen goods. Estimated value at $43,000. We've also flagged several other irregularities in his division that we'll need to address. And the district attorney's office called. They're very interested in the smuggling charges. Good. Process everything through legal. Cooperate fully with law enforcement. I want this by the book. Understood. She paused. What about your sister? What about her? She's going to find out. This is going to blow back on you. Let it, I said. She made her choice. They all did. I walked out of Coastal Freight feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone started ringing before I got to my truck. Laura. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times. On the 4th, I answered. Kai, what did you do? She was screaming. Elias just called me crying. I terminated an employee for theft and fraud. You what? How did you? She stopped. What's going on? Parker Transport Group. Ever heard of it? That's the company that bought Coastal. What? She stopped again. No, you don't own anything. I'm the chief executive officer and founder of Parker Transport Group, and Elias was stealing. Silence. You're serious. Completely. But how? Why didn't you tell us? When was I supposed to? Between you calling me the failure or mom forgetting to serve me dessert? Oh my god. She sounded like she might throw up. Oh my god, Kai. I didn't know. We didn't know. That's the problem, Laura. You never bothered to know. You just assumed I was a failure because I didn't follow your script, because I dropped out of school and didn't want the life you wanted. But Elias said a lot of things. Most of them were lies, including the part about you coming from money. He thought marrying you would give him connections, capital, influence. That's why he was with you, Laura. Not because he loved you, because he thought you could help his career. I heard her start to cry. Is that why you did this? To get back at us? I did this because Elias was committing crimes using my company's resources. If he'd been anyone else's problem, I would have done the same thing. You could have warned me. Would you have believed me? Or would you have accused me of being jealous? More silence. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now Elias probably faces criminal charges. We're cooperating with the district attorney's office. He'll likely take a plea deal, might do some time, will definitely have a criminal record. His career in logistics is over, and your engagement is over, she finished. Obviously over. Mom's going to die. She's been planning the wedding for months. Mom will survive. Kai, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for how I treated you, how we all treated you. I didn't realize. Look, I said, softer now. I don't need an apology right now. What I need is for you to understand something. I never flaunted my success because I didn't need to. I built my company because I love the work, not to prove anything to you or mom or anyone else. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt when you mocked me, when you made me feel like nothing. I know, and I'm sorry. Good. Now you need to tell mom. Tell her what? Everything. Who I am, what I've built, what Elias was really doing. She needs to hear it from you. She's going to freak out. That's not my problem. You wanted to be the golden child? Congratulations. You get to deliver the bad news. I hung up before she could respond. 30 minutes later, Mom called. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Uncle Billy called. Didn't answer. By evening, my phone had 19 missed calls and 24 unread messages. I silenced it and went home to my penthouse overlooking the harbor. Cracked open a soda, stood on my balcony watching the ships move through the port. My ships, using my terminals, crewed by my people. I'd spent years being invisible to my family. Now I was all they could see. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Laura called off the engagement, obviously. Returned the ring, canceled the wedding venue. Told all her friends it was mutual. I heard through the grapevine that Elias tried to paint himself as the victim. Claimed I'd set him up, but when the evidence started going public through the legal proceedings, that story fell apart fast. The district attorney decided to prosecute. Elias got offered a plea deal, 18 months in minimum security, 3 years probation, restitution of $43,000 plus fines. His lawyer apparently advised him to take it. Fighting it would mean a trial, and a trial would mean all his dirty laundry aired out in public. Smart move on his part. Laura spiraled for a while. Took a leave from her job, stopped posting on social media, basically went into hiding. I felt bad about that. Not bad enough to regret what I'd done, but bad enough that I sent her a text saying if she needed anything, she could call me. She never responded. Mom was a different story. She couldn't decide if she was proud of me or mad at me. Proud that her son was apparently successful beyond her wildest dreams. Mad that I'd embarrassed the family. She finally showed up at my office 3 weeks after the Elias incident. My assistant tried to stop her, but Mom can be persistent. She stood in the doorway, looking around. So it's true. All of it. All of it. This whole time, you let us think you were struggling. Why, Kai? Why would you do that? I leaned back in my chair. I didn't let you think anything, Mom. You thought it because you never asked. Never cared enough to find out. You were so convinced I was a failure that you didn't bother looking past your own assumptions. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you asked me about my work? Actually asked what I do, what I've accomplished? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I dropped out of college 12 years ago, I continued. And from that day forward, you wrote me off. The disappointment. The one who couldn't hack it. Meanwhile, I was building this. I gestured around the office. Starting from nothing, working my tail off, creating something real. But you never noticed because you'd already decided I wasn't worth it. I never said that. You didn't have to. It was in every family dinner where you forgot to serve me. Every time you changed the subject when someone asked about me. Every time you praised Laura for her real job while ignoring mine, you made it crystal clear where I stood. She started crying. I handed her the box of tissues from my desk. I was a terrible mother to you, she said between sobs. I was so focused on Laura, on her being perfect, on her checking all the boxes. I made you feel like you didn't matter. Yeah, I said simply. You did. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about it. I don't know, Mom. Maybe eventually. But right now, I'm still pretty angry, and hurt, and tired of being treated like I'm less than. She nodded, wiping her eyes. What can I do? Start by treating me like I exist, by actually caring. I do care. I just didn't show it. I didn't know how. Then learn, because I'm not going to keep showing up to family events where I'm the punchline. She stood up, walked around my desk, and hugged me. I stood there and let her hug me. I wasn't there yet, but I also wasn't that kid begging for her approval anymore. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. She pulled back, looked at me with red eyes. Can I ask you something? Sure. What you did to Elias. That wasn't just about him stealing, was it? That was about all of us. I considered lying. Considered taking the high road, but forget it. Yeah, it was. If Elias had been a good guy, if he'd treated me like a person instead of a charity case, if my whole family hadn't laughed when he offered me a job at my own company, maybe I would have pulled him aside quietly, given him a chance to fix things. But he didn't. You all didn't. So I decided to stop playing nice. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. Then she left after that, promised to do better. I didn't hold my breath. Laura reached out a month later, asked if we could talk. We met at a coffee shop. She looked rough, like she hadn't been sleeping. Told me she'd been in a dark place, that finding out Elias was a fraud and I was successful had sent her into a tailspin. She'd been questioning everything about her life. I listened. Didn't offer much sympathy, but I listened. As for Elias, I heard he got out after 14 months with good behavior. Moved to another state, working some low-level job. His career in logistics was over. Owen got promoted. He's running operations at our Tacoma facility now. Life got back to normal. I kept running my company, kept growing the business. The difference is now my family knows who I am. They know what I built while they were busy dismissing me. Does it feel good? Not really. Turns out validation from people who spent years treating you like garbage doesn't hit the way you'd think. But I sleep fine at night. My company's thriving. My employees have good jobs. My contracts are solid. My family gets to live with their choices. I'm good with mine. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Parents kicked me out just because the golden child sister couldn't stand me. 10 years ago, my life basically got flipped upside down because my family, especially my sister Claire, decided to kick me out of the house. And why? Because they thought I was some sort of traitor for figuring out how to pay for my college tuition without their help. I was 18, just about to start college, and suddenly I found myself with nowhere to go. This all happened thanks to Claire, the golden child who always managed to make me look like I was barely worth anything in comparison. Claire is 4 years older than me, and from the time we were kids, it was clear that she was the favorite. Like, not just a little bit. I mean, my parents were obsessed with her. If she got an A, they'd throw her a freaking parade. But if I got an A, it was like, oh, cool. What's for dinner? You get the idea. So I kind of grew up with the mentality that it didn't matter what I did because Claire would always outshine me. By the time she went off to a top business school, my parents were all over it, like she was some sort of prodigy. They paid for everything, her tuition, her apartment, her fancy clothes. Meanwhile, I kept my head down and figured I'd have to do things on my own. So when I got accepted into a reputable college in the UK to study history, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd get a little bit of support. But nope, that wasn't happening. My parents straight up told me they couldn't afford my tuition, which, okay, I get it. College is expensive. But what really pissed me off was that they didn't even want to co-sign a loan. I wasn't asking them to pay the whole thing, just to help me out so I wouldn't be drowning in debt my whole life. But they refused, and we fought about it a lot. Their reasoning? We already paid for Claire's college. We have to think about our future now. Oh, and they were also planning to start some kind of small business around that time, so apparently all their savings were going into that. I was completely stuck. I didn't want to lose the opportunity to go to this college, but it felt like my parents were just throwing obstacles in my way for no reason. They had no problem spending tons of money on Claire, but when it came to me, suddenly they had to be frugal and responsible. I needed help, and it became pretty obvious that they weren't going to give it to me. So, with no other options, I turned to my Aunt Denise. Now, Denise is my dad's older sister, and let me just say, she's like the total opposite of my parents. She's a neurosurgeon and, honestly, way more successful than either of them, but she's also super down to earth. My parents always had this weird tension with her. They'd act all polite at family gatherings, but I could tell they were bitter about how successful she was compared to them. My dad, in particular, hated feeling like she overshadowed him. I didn't really want to get her involved at first, but I was desperate. I reached out to her one day, asking if she'd be willing to help me with the tuition. She didn't even hesitate. She was like, "Of course I'll help. Why didn't you come to me sooner?" But I was terrified that my dad would find out. If he knew I had gone behind his back to ask for money from his sister, he'd lose his mind. So I begged Denise to keep it a secret. Things were fine for a while after that. I figured I was in the clear. My tuition was covered, and I was getting ready to leave for school. That's when Claire decided to ruin everything. To this day, I still don't know how she found out about me asking Aunt Denise for help, but she did. And being Claire, she couldn't just let it go. She had to blow it up into this huge, dramatic thing. One night, I came home after hanging out with some friends, and immediately I knew something was off. All my stuff was packed up in boxes. Everything. My clothes, my books, even my bedding. My parents were sitting in the living room, and Claire was standing there with this smug, self-satisfied look on her face. It felt like I had walked into some twisted intervention. My dad didn't waste any time. He threw a stack of papers at me and said, "Explain this." I had no idea what he was talking about, so I looked at the papers, and that's when I realized Claire had gone full psycho. She had fabricated these fake emails between me and Aunt Denise, where it looked like I was betraying the family, leaking details about the business my parents were planning to start in exchange for Aunt Denise paying for my tuition. I couldn't believe my eyes. Claire had gone through my laptop, found some emails between me and Denise, and then doctored them using Photoshop or whatever. She made it look like I had sold out our family. I was stunned. I tried to explain that it was all fake, but my parents didn't even listen. They just stood there saying, "We trusted you, and you stabbed us in the back." It didn't matter what I said. They believed Claire, because of course they did. They always believed her. It was like I didn't even exist anymore. They told me to pack my things and leave, right then and there. I was officially kicked out of the house because of a complete lie. I begged them to reconsider. I didn't want to be a burden on Aunt Denise, especially after she had already agreed to pay for my tuition. But my parents didn't care. They said I was a traitor, and they wanted nothing to do with me. So that was it. I left with nothing but the clothes on my back and a few boxes of my stuff, and I moved in with Aunt Denise. Honestly, I don't know how I would have survived if it weren't for her. She took me in without a second thought and treated me like actual family, something I hadn't felt in years. While my parents were busy worshiping Claire and focusing on their future business, Denise was the only one who really cared about me, and for that, I'll always be grateful. But to this day, I can't shake the memory of that night. Walking into my house and seeing all my stuff packed up, my parents staring at me like I was a criminal, and Claire standing there with that smug look on her face knowing she had won. So there I was, kicked out of my own house, standing on Aunt Denise's doorstep with my life in boxes. I was still processing what the hell had just happened. It felt like a bad dream. I mean, how do you go from thinking you're part of a family to being homeless in one night? The whole thing was so surreal, but at the same time, I couldn't say I was that surprised. My parents had always made it clear that Claire came first, but I guess I never thought they'd take it this far. Denise, being the angel that she is, welcomed me with open arms. She didn't ask a million questions. She didn't pry. She just saw that I was hurting and told me that her house was my house for as long as I needed. That kind of kindness? Man, it hit me right in the gut because I realized right then that I had never felt anything close to that from my own parents. So, I moved in with her. It was strange at first, waking up in her guest room, looking around at a house that wasn't mine, but over time, it started to feel more like home than the place I grew up in ever had. We started getting closer, talking more about everything. Turns out, Aunt Denise knew a lot more about my parents and their BS than I ever realized. She'd been keeping her distance from them for years, only showing up to family events because she felt obligated. She told me something that blew my mind. Apparently, my dad's grudge against her started way before I was born. Denise had always been more successful. She went to med school, got married to a great guy, who unfortunately passed away young, and was living her life. Meanwhile, my dad was doing okay, but every time they met up, he'd get weirdly competitive. Denise said that their relationship basically became a game of who could look better to the rest of the family, but instead of just being proud of his sister, he resented her. And it wasn't just career stuff. My dad felt overshadowed in every way, financially, socially, everything. I guess that jealousy bled over into how he treated me. Denise had figured all this out years ago but kept quiet because she didn't want to make things worse for me. Now that I was living with her, though, she told me everything. It was like she was trying to fill in all the gaps in my life that I hadn't been able to make sense of before. Why my parents never seemed to care about what I did, why they always bent over backward for Claire. It all boiled down to some weird family dynamic that I didn't even know existed. Living with Denise was great, but the thing is, I couldn't completely relax. I kept waiting for my parents to call, for Claire to show up out of nowhere, or for them to apologize for what they did. But of course, that never happened. Days turned into weeks, and nothing. Not a single text, not a single call. At first I was angry. Like, really angry. How could they just toss me aside like I was nothing? Then the anger kind of faded and I started to feel numb about the whole thing. It was like my brain was shutting off all my emotions just so I could function. Denise, though, she was amazing. She never pushed me to talk about what happened unless I wanted to. She let me take my time figuring things out. She even helped me get all my stuff sorted for school, making sure I had everything I needed before I left for the UK. I swear, if it weren't for her, I don't know how I would have gotten through that time. But even with her support, the silence from my parents was deafening. You'd think after kicking your kid out, you'd at least check up on them, right? But no. I guess I shouldn't have expected anything different, but I still did. One afternoon, about a month after the whole ordeal, I got a text from Claire. I remember it so clearly because it was just as obnoxious as she was. All it said was, "Hope you're doing okay. By the way, don't leave your laptop lying around." That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she had done. Just a little smirk in text form, reminding me that she was the one who got me thrown out. I stared at the screen, feeling my blood boil. She was taunting me, plain and simple. I didn't respond. What was the point? Claire wasn't the type to feel guilty about anything. In her mind, she had won some weird family game, and that was that. I thought about texting back something snarky, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. She'd just get off on it. So I blocked her number and tried to move on. It wasn't easy. Every time I looked at my phone, part of me was still waiting for something from my parents. Maybe a message from my mom, saying she regretted everything, or even a passive-aggressive email from my dad, pretending like nothing happened. But nope, radio silence. In the months that followed, Denise and I got into a solid routine. She became more than just my aunt. She became my confidant, my friend, and basically the only family I had left. I started to see how messed up my parents really were. They'd spent so long focusing on Claire, trying to mold her into some perfect daughter, that they completely missed out on everything else. And when Claire finally messed up, which she eventually would, it would be too late for them to fix it. Around the time I was getting ready to leave for school, I got another message, this time from my dad. It was short and direct. "Good luck in the UK." That was it. No apology, no explanation, nothing. It felt like a slap in the face. After everything, all he had to say was "good luck"? I didn't even know how to respond, so I didn't. I just deleted the message and tried not to think about it. The day I left for the UK, Denise drove me to the airport. She hugged me and told me how proud she was, how she knew I'd do great things. It was the first time in my life that someone in my family had said those words to me, and it hit me harder than I expected. I got on that plane feeling like I was leaving more than just my home behind. I was leaving behind the part of me that had always tried to seek approval from my parents. From that moment on, I decided I didn't need them anymore. I had Denise, I had my future, and I had myself. If they wanted to reach out, fine, but I wasn't going to waste any more energy chasing after people who clearly didn't care about me. I was done. So life in the UK was going great. I settled into college, made some friends, and for the first time in years, I wasn't constantly thinking about my family. I won't say I forgot about them, I don't think that's possible, but they definitely weren't on my mind as much anymore. I was focused on my studies, figuring out my future, and just trying to enjoy life without the drama that came with living under my parents' shadow. But of course, just when things were going smoothly, something had to come and mess it up. I finished college and I came back to my city. I found a very good high-paying job, and then I got a call from my mom. Yeah, my mom. The same woman who hadn't spoken to me since the day they kicked me out. It was totally unexpected. I was sitting in my dorm room going over some notes for a paper when my phone buzzed. I saw her name pop up, and for a second I thought I was seeing things. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Should I answer it? Ignore it? After everything that had happened, why would she be calling me now? I let it ring a few more times, and then, against my better judgment, I picked up. "Hello?" I said, trying to sound calm, even though my heart was pounding. There was a pause on the other end, like she wasn't sure what to say. Finally, she spoke. "Hi, it's your mother." "No kidding. Who else would it be?" I didn't say that, though. I just stayed quiet, waiting for her to explain why she was calling after almost 2 years of nothing. She hesitated again, and then out of nowhere she said, "We need to talk." I couldn't help but scoff. Now she wanted to talk. After everything? It was so typical of her. But even though I was annoyed, a part of me was curious. What could possibly be so important that she was reaching out after all this time? "About what?" I asked, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. Your father and I, we want to see you," she said, stumbling over her words like she was trying to figure out how to phrase it right. I could already tell where this was going. They didn't actually want to see me because they missed me or felt bad for kicking me out. There was something they needed, and I had a pretty good guess about what it was. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Why?" I asked bluntly. She didn't answer right away, which pretty much confirmed my suspicions. When she finally did speak, her voice was quieter, like she was trying to sound all motherly and concerned. "Your dad and I, we've been going through a hard time. Things haven't been easy since the pandemic." There it was, the real reason behind the call. It was exactly what I thought. Money problems. I hadn't heard much about their business since I left, but I knew it wasn't doing well. Denise had mentioned something in passing about how their shop wasn't thriving the way they had expected, and with the pandemic, it made sense that they'd be struggling. But I wasn't going to jump in and save them, not after everything they had done to me. "Okay, and?" I said, my voice flat. I wasn't about to make this easy for her. "Your sister, Claire, she's been managing things for us, but," she started, and that's when I cut her off. "Let me guess," I said, already knowing where this was headed. "Claire screwed it all up?" There was a long pause on her end, which was answer enough. Of course, Claire had messed it up. I don't know why they were surprised. She was always more interested in looking good than actually doing the hard work. They had put all their faith in her, and now it was backfiring. My mom let out a shaky breath. "Things haven't been going as planned," she admitted, "and we need help." I laughed. I couldn't help it. After everything, after throwing me out, cutting me off, letting Claire walk all over me, now they wanted my help? The audacity of it all was unreal. "Unbelievable," I muttered under my breath. "What's so funny?" my mom asked, sounding genuinely confused, like she couldn't understand why I wasn't jumping at the chance to swoop in and save the day. "You're serious? You actually think I'm going to help you?" I said, my voice rising. I could feel the anger bubbling up, all the emotions I'd been pushing down for the past 2 years coming to the surface. "We're your parents," she said, her voice wavering. "We made mistakes, but we need you." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "You didn't just make mistakes, Mom. You kicked me out of the house. You believed Claire's lies over your own son. You haven't spoken to me in years, and now you need me. And suddenly, I'm supposed to drop everything and come running?" She was quiet after that. I could tell she didn't know what to say. She probably wasn't used to me standing up for myself like this. Back when I was still living at home, I would have just gone along with whatever they said, hoping it would keep the peace. But not anymore. I had changed, and I wasn't going to let them walk all over me again. Finally, she spoke, but her tone had changed. She wasn't trying to be all soft and caring anymore. Now she sounded irritated, like she couldn't believe I was being so difficult. "We're still your family," she said sharply. "You owe us at least that much." That was it. That was the final straw. I didn't owe them anything. In fact, they were the ones who owed me. An apology, for starters. But I wasn't holding my breath on that one. "I don't owe you a damn thing," I said, my voice cold. "If you need help, go ask Claire. She's your golden child, remember?" Without waiting for her to respond, I hung up the phone. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I had finally said what I needed to say. They could figure out their mess on their own. I wasn't going to be part of it. That night, I called Aunt Denise and told her what happened. She wasn't surprised at all. "They've been relying on Claire for years," she said. "It was only a matter of time before it all caught up to them." We talked for a while, and by the end of the call, I felt even more certain that I'd made the right decision. My parents had chosen Claire over me, and now they were paying the price. As harsh as it sounded, it wasn't my responsibility to fix their mistakes. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I didn't need their approval or their acceptance. I had my own life now, and I wasn't about to let them drag me back into their toxic mess. I had done my part by surviving their betrayal. Now, It was their turn to deal with the consequences. Update 1. I thought I was done with all the family drama after that phone call with my mom. Honestly, I felt pretty good about how things went. I had finally stood up for myself and made it clear that I wasn't going to be their safety net. I figured they'd just give up and go back to depending on Claire, but I underestimated my sister's ability to stir the pot. Because, of course, Claire wasn't going to let me get away that easily. It was about 2 weeks after the call with my mom when something weird happened. I was having a pretty normal Saturday afternoon just cleaning up around my place when I heard a knock on the door. Now, I don't really get visitors. I live alone, and most of my friends know to text before they come over, so I was a little confused. I peeked through the peephole, and guess who was standing outside? Yep, Claire. For a second, I thought maybe I was seeing things. Like, what was she doing here? She hadn't spoken to me in years except for that one stupid text about my laptop, and now she was just showing up at my door like everything was fine. My gut reaction was to just ignore her, but I knew Claire well enough to know that she wouldn't leave until she got what she wanted. I opened the door, and before I could even say anything, she smiled, like we were best friends or something. "Hey," she said, all bubbly and fake. "It's been a while." I just stared at her for a second, completely caught off guard. Yeah, it has. What are you doing here, Claire?" She looked at me with this overly sweet expression, like she thought she could charm her way into my good graces. "I wanted to talk," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Can I come in?" I crossed my arms, not moving from the doorway. "About what?" I asked, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. Her smile faltered for a second, but she recovered quickly. "Come on, can we just talk inside? It's important." I should have said no. I should have just told her to leave right then and there. But my curiosity got the better of me. I stepped aside and let her in, though I didn't bother making her feel welcome. I didn't offer her a seat, and I didn't ask if she wanted anything to drink. She was lucky I was even letting her into my space after everything she'd done. She walked in and looked around, like she was taking in the place. "Nice apartment," she said, like she was trying to make small talk. I didn't respond. I wasn't here for pleasantries. "Okay, Claire," I said, getting straight to the point. "What do you want?" She sighed dramatically, like she was already exhausted from whatever game she was playing. "Mom told me about your conversation," she said, folding her arms. "She's pretty upset, you know." I raised an eyebrow. "Upset? She kicked me out of the house, Claire. What exactly does she have to be upset about?" Claire rolled her eyes, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Look, I'm not here to rehash all that. We both know you've always been difficult." I almost laughed at how casually she said that. "Difficult?" I repeated. "Are you serious right now? You fabricated emails to get me kicked out of the house. That's difficult." She waved her hand dismissively. "That's ancient history. I came here because I want to make things right." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her correctly. "You want to make things right?" I asked, skepticism dripping from every word. "Yeah," she said, nodding like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. "I know things got complicated with the family, and maybe I overreacted back then, but I think it's time to put all that behind us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think you overreacted?" I said, struggling to keep my voice even. "Claire, you destroyed my relationship with our parents. You lied about me, manipulated them, and now you're standing here like none of that matters anymore." Her smile faded a little, and I could see that she was getting frustrated. "I didn't come here to argue, okay? I came because I need your help." Ah, there it was. The real reason she was standing in my apartment. Of course, Claire wasn't here to apologize or to make amends. She needed something from me. I felt my jaw clench as I stared at her, waiting for her to continue. "I've been trying to keep the business going," she said, finally dropping the fake sweetness. "But it's been really hard. The pandemic hit us pretty badly, and I'm doing everything I can, but it's not enough. Mom and Dad don't want to admit it, but we're on the verge of losing everything." I crossed my arms, not feeling an ounce of sympathy. "So, let me guess, you want me to help bail you out?" Claire shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not asking for a handout," she said defensively. "I just thought we could, I don't know, figure something out together. You're doing well for yourself, right? I figured you'd want to help the family." I couldn't believe her. She was trying to guilt trip me into saving the family business that she had driven into the ground. "You figured wrong," I said flatly. Claire blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "Wait, what do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not helping you," I said, my voice firm. "Not after everything you did. You ruined my life, Claire. You turned my own parents against me. And now that you're in trouble, you think I'm just going to forget all of that and swoop in to save you? No." She stared at me dumbfounded. For the first time in her life, Claire didn't seem to know what to say. But we're family, she said weakly, her voice losing some of its confidence. I shook my head. We stopped being family the day you made it your mission to destroy me. Claire's face went pale. She wasn't used to hearing no, and I could tell she was struggling to process it. After a long, awkward silence, she stood up. Fine, she said coldly, if that's how you want it. That's how it's going to be, I said, standing my ground. You made your choices, Claire. Now you have to deal with the consequences. Without another word, she stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a minute, letting the tension drain out of me. Part of me felt bad, like maybe I was too harsh. But then I remembered everything she'd put me through, and that guilt faded fast. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life. I wasn't living in Claire's shadow anymore. I wasn't the second choice or the scapegoat. I was finally free from all of it. Update 2. I thought that after Claire stormed out of my apartment, things would go quiet. Like, she would finally get the message that I was done with her and the whole family drama. But of course, I underestimated just how stubborn she could be. It wasn't even a full week later when the next wave hit. And this time, it wasn't Claire knocking on my door. It was both my parents. It was a Saturday again. Funny how these things always seem to happen on my days off. I was just sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone when the knock came. It wasn't soft either. It was one of those heavy, insistent knocks that tells you whoever's on the other side isn't leaving anytime soon. I got up, already having a feeling about who it might be, and when I opened the door, there they were, my mom and dad, standing together like some kind of united front. My dad looked uncomfortable, like he didn't really want to be there. But my mom? She had that look in her eye, the one that said she was determined to fix whatever mess had been made, even if it meant bulldozing her way through. I sighed, leaning against the doorframe. What do you want? My mom gave me a strained smile, trying to keep things friendly, I guess. Can we come in and talk? We need to sort some things out. I was tempted to slam the door in their faces, but part of me figured that if I didn't let them in now, they'd just keep showing up. So, with an exaggerated sigh, I stepped aside and let them in. They walked in, glancing around the place like they were expecting something more than a basic apartment. My dad stayed quiet, but my mom went straight for the couch, sitting down and patting the seat next to her like I was some little kid she was trying to console. I'll stand, I said flatly, crossing my arms. All right, she said with a tight smile. Look, we know things have been difficult between us. Difficult? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. That's what you're calling it? My dad finally spoke up, his voice low and gruff. We didn't come here to argue. Then what did you come here for? I asked, not even bothering to hide my frustration. Because I'm pretty sure we've already been over everything. Claire tried, you tried, and I made myself clear. I'm not helping. My mom's smile wavered a little. She probably wasn't used to me talking back like this. That's not why we're here, she said, leaning forward slightly. We're here because we want to apologize. I almost laughed. Apologize? For what exactly? Kicking me out? Believing Claire's lies? Or was it that you didn't even bother checking in on me for 2 years? My mom's face tightened, and my dad shifted uncomfortably, looking like he wanted to be anywhere but here. It was clear they weren't expecting me to throw it back in their faces like that. We know we made mistakes, my mom said, her voice quieter now. But we're family, and family has to stick together. I could feel my patience wearing thin. This was just more of the same. Every time something went wrong, they'd pull out the family card like it was supposed to erase everything that happened. But I wasn't falling for it this time. You guys are only here because you need something from me, I said bluntly. If things hadn't gone south with the business, I wouldn't even be hearing from you. Let's not pretend this is about family. There was a moment of silence, and then my dad finally spoke up, his voice rough, but more honest than anything I'd heard from him in years. You're right. That caught me off guard. I blinked, staring at him. What? You're right, he repeated, sighing heavily. We screwed up. We believed Claire, we pushed you out, and we didn't even think twice about it. And now, well, now things are falling apart and we're desperate. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't expecting him to actually admit it. My mom, on the other hand, looked like she was trying not to lose her cool. Clearly, she hadn't planned for him to just lay it all out like that. I appreciate the honesty, I said after a long pause. But that doesn't change anything. My mom cut in then, her voice sharper. It doesn't change the fact that we need you, and you owe us, after everything we've done for you. And there it was again, that sense of entitlement. They really believed I owed them something just because they were my parents. Like all the years of neglect and favoritism didn't matter, and now that they were in trouble, I was supposed to bail them out. I don't owe you anything, I said, my voice cold. Not after the way you treated me. You made your choice when you believed Claire over me, when you threw me out and didn't even check if I was okay. Now you want me to save you? That's not how this works. My dad didn't say anything. He just sat there staring at the floor like he was ashamed. But my mom? She wasn't done yet. We're your parents, she said, her voice rising. We raised you, we took care of you, and now you're just going to abandon us? I shook my head, almost feeling sorry for her at this point. You didn't take care of me. Aunt Denise did. You chose Claire, and now you're stuck with her. That's on you. My mom looked like she was about to explode, but my dad put a hand on her arm, stopping her from saying whatever was about to come out of her mouth. He stood up, looking me in the eye for the first time since they walked in. We understand, he said, his voice steady but sad. We're not going to push you anymore. We just needed to try. For a second, I almost felt bad for him. But then I remembered everything they had put me through, and that sympathy disappeared. I hope you figure it out, I said, stepping toward the door and opening it for them. But I'm not going to be part of it. My dad nodded, like he'd expected that. My mom, though, gave me one last look, half angry, half pleading. But when she saw I wasn't budging, she stood up and followed him out. As they left, I closed the door behind them and stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle in. I'd done it. I had finally stood up to them, and for the first time it felt like I was really free. My dad beat me up and disowned me on my 18th birthday for raising my voice at my golden brother, yelling, "You're a failure that is not worth celebrating." So I made them regret it. Sup Reddit. When I turned 18 on a Saturday in late September, I'd been counting down to that exact day for 3 years straight. Not because I wanted to vote or buy scratch-offs or whatever regular kids look forward to. I was counting because that was my expiration date on their control. The day they legally couldn't drag me back home if I decided to disappear. I, 22 male, grew up in one of those houses that photographs well. 2-story craftsman, white trim, hedges that my dad obsessed over every weekend. From the curb, we looked like we had it together. Inside, though, it was like living in a house where I was the one thing they wished they could hide. My brother Evan is 2 years younger, and he's been the favorite since the second he took his first breath. Not exaggerating. The kid could torch the garage and they'd ask him if he needed therapy and a new Xbox to process his feelings. Meanwhile, I left a wet towel on the bathroom floor once and got a 45-minute lecture about respect and responsibility that ended with my dad asking if I was raised by wolves. Growing up, I learned to exist quietly. Light footsteps, no complaints, always one step ahead of what they needed so they wouldn't have to ask. My dad had this look he'd give me, like I annoyed him just by being there. My mom was worse because she'd smile while saying garbage like, "Evan's just naturally talented, sweetie. You have to work twice as hard to keep up." Evan got the genetics, the personality, the breaks. After my mom lost 3 pregnancies before him, he became their miracle baby, their second chance. And I was just the kid they had before they figured out what they actually wanted. I tried, though. Pulled decent grades, worked part-time at the local hardware store loading bags of mulch and concrete mix after school, never caused problems. Saved every dollar because I already knew college wasn't happening with their money. Whenever my dad talked about my future, he'd grunt something like, "You'll figure it out. You're resourceful." Evan got a brand new gaming laptop at 16 for school. He mostly used it to stream videos and game until 3 a.m. When I asked to borrow it once for college research, my mom said to ask Evan first. He told me to get my own. End of discussion. So when my 18th birthday rolled around, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a card with $20 inside. Maybe a sheet cake from the grocery store. Something that acknowledged I existed. I woke up around 10:30, came downstairs, and found my dad tying a silver ribbon around this sleek black box on the kitchen counter. Evan was bouncing around like it was Christmas morning. My mom had that fake camera-ready smile plastered across her face. Nobody looked at me. Not once. My mom finally noticed me standing there and said, "Oh, perfect timing, honey. Evan, go ahead." I just stood there, confused, frozen. Evan ripped into the box and pulled out this expensive stainless steel watch, leather band, the kind that costs more than 3 months of my hardware store paychecks, the kind you see in magazine ads for cologne and luxury cars. "Yo, this is sick," Evan grinned, sliding it onto his wrist and turning it to catch the light. "Now I don't have to keep stealing yours, Dad." My dad laughed and ruffled his hair. "You earned it, champ. We're proud of you. Earned it." The kid's biggest accomplishment that month was making JV basketball and not getting suspended for vaping in the locker room. I stood there waiting for somebody to remember, to look at me, to say the two words that actually mattered today. My mom glanced over, must have seen something in my face because she said, "Don't look so bitter, Nolan. Life isn't about material things. When you're older, you'll understand that character matters more than gifts." I felt like I'd been punched. She said it in that smooth, condescending voice she uses when she wants to sound wise. Like I was some spoiled brat throwing a tantrum over a toy. "Thought we were having cake," I said quietly. "Oh, we had some earlier," Evan said casually, not even looking up from his new watch. "While you were sleeping in?" I blinked. "You had cake without me." "It was just a small thing," my mom said quickly. "Nothing big. Don't make a scene." Evan smirked. "My name was on it. You missed it, bro. I mean, it was sort of a joint celebration, but it's not your birthday." "Get over it," my dad snapped. "It's just a cake, Nolan. Stop being dramatic." That's when something in my head just went. Like a wire snapping. I looked at Evan. Really looked at him. Standing there with his $150 watch, wearing the hoodie I'd bought with my own money that he'd borrowed 3 months ago, and never returned. "You know what?" I said, voice louder than I intended. "This is pathetic. You're pathetic. You haven't earned anything in your entire life. You just coast while they hand you everything and pretend you're special." Evan's face went red. "What's your problem, man?" "My problem?" I laughed, and it came out wrong. "My problem is I'm standing here on my birthday, watching you get a watch for existing, while they can't even remember what day it is." "Nolan," my mom warned, "that's enough." "No, it's not enough. It's never been enough. You treat me like I'm some stray dog you're stuck feeding while you throw parties for the golden boy who's failed every class except gym." That's when my dad moved. Fast. He grabbed me by the shirt, shoved me hard against the refrigerator. My head cracked against the stainless steel. Everything went white for a second. "You're done," he said, voice low and cold. "You hear me? Done." I shoved him back, hard enough that he stumbled. His eyes went wide with shock. I'd never pushed back before. Never raised my voice. Never fought. "Touch me again," I said quietly, "and I'll make you regret it." He came at me again, this time with his fist, caught me in the ribs. Once. Twice. I doubled over, gasping for air. My mom screamed. Evan just stood there watching. My dad grabbed my face, forced me to look at him. "Enough," he said. "We're done celebrating a failure like you. You are just a mistake. Now get out of my sight." A mistake. That's what I was. Not his son. I straightened up, ribs screaming, tasted blood in my mouth, looked at all three of them. My mom crying fake tears. Evan still holding his watch. My dad breathing hard, fists clenched. And I realized something. They were never going to love me. Didn't matter what I did, how hard I tried, how small I made myself. I would never be Evan. So I made a choice. I walked upstairs, grabbed my backpack, stuffed in a hoodie, some socks, granola bars, my phone charger, and the $180 I'd been saving in an envelope taped under my desk drawer. I had my ID, my debit card, and a Greyhound bus schedule I'd saved to my phone 3 weeks ago, just in case. At 2 a.m., while everyone was asleep, I slipped out the back door. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I'd rather sleep on the street than spend another night in that house. The first 4 nights were brutal, not going to sugarcoat it. I bounced between the 24-hour diner off Route 12, a corner of the public library until they kicked me out at closing, and a bench behind the YMCA that nobody checked after midnight. I learned which vending machines were most likely to double drop if you hit them right, which gas station bathrooms had the best soap for washing up, and which bus routes ran all night so I could sleep without getting hassled by cops. On the 4th day, I almost got spotted. I was walking past the strip mall to charge my phone at the library, and I saw my dad's truck turning into the parking lot like it owned the place. Same dents on the bumper, same vanity plate frame. My brain went ice cold. I ducked behind a vending machine near the laundromat entrance and just stood there, pretending to scroll like I belonged. I watched him get out, look around, and then march into the grocery store like he was on a mission. He didn't see me, but I learned something right then. Disappearing isn't just leaving. It's staying gone when you're 5 seconds from getting caught. By night 5, my phone was mostly dead. My hoodie smelled like sweat and rain, and I'd eaten so many gas station protein bars, I thought my stomach might revolt. That's when I found the church downtown. They ran a shelter program out of the basement. Nothing fancy, just cots and a hot meal 3 times a week. The guy at intake was an older dude with gray hair and the kind eyes you don't see often. He didn't ask questions when I showed up with my backpack and busted lip. Just nodded and pointed me toward an empty cot near the back. I stayed there for 11 days. Met some people. Learned things. like how to stretch $3 into 2 meals, how to spot trouble before it spots you, how to sleep light so nobody takes your stuff. During the day, I'd walk to the library and fill out job applications on the public computers. I applied everywhere: restaurants, retail stores, warehouses, delivery services, anything that would take someone with a high school diploma and a pulse. My phone started buzzing with callbacks after about a week and a half. That's also when my dad started calling. First message was angry, threatening, then confused, then desperate. By the fourth voicemail, he was crying. "Your room's still here, Nolan. Please, just come home. We can talk about this." I didn't call back. What was I supposed to say? That I'd rather sleep on a cot in a church basement than live in a house where I was a mistake? I eventually landed a job at a medical supply distribution center, this massive hub off Highway 47 that shipped hospital equipment and pharmaceutical supplies to clinics across 3 states. The pay was minimum wage plus occasional overtime, but they hired me on the spot when I showed up for the interview in a borrowed button-down. The operations manager, a guy with forearms like steel cables, looked at me and said, "You show up on time, you work hard, you don't steal, we're good." That's the whole deal. I showed up every single day, early. After 2 weeks sleeping in the shelter, I met the older guy from intake outside after one of the meal services. He was dropping off donated blankets and canned soup. Former electrician, retired early after his wife died. He mentioned he had this converted shed behind his house that he'd been using for storage, but he'd been thinking about renting it out cheap to someone who needed a break. I asked how cheap. He said $120 a week, utilities included. I moved in the next morning. It wasn't much. A twin mattress on a metal frame, a space heater that only worked if you didn't breathe on it wrong, a microwave, and a hot plate. Smelled like motor oil and old newspapers. But it was warm, private, and mine. The landlord left me alone mostly, just knocked once a week for rent, and occasionally left a bag of groceries on the step without saying anything about it. I worked 40-plus hours at the hub, sometimes picking up Saturday shifts when they needed bodies for urgent shipments. I kept my head down, did the work, didn't complain. After about 6 weeks, the manager started assigning me to the inventory control station, the spot that didn't require as much heavy lifting. He never explained why, just did it. At night, I'd walk to the library and work on community college applications. I'd missed some deadlines, but spring enrollment was still open. I wrote essays on my phone, saved them to a free cloud account, and printed them at the library for 15 cents a page. Every application fee hurt. $40 here, 50 there. But I paid them. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell anyone. By early December, I'd settled into a routine at the hub, started recognizing faces, learning names. It felt strange, like I was actually building something real. My phone still buzzed occasionally. Unknown numbers mostly. Voicemails I deleted without listening to. I figured they'd moved on by now. Converted my room into a home gym or office or storage closet. Then one day in early December, I got an email from my high school counselor. "Nolan, I hope this finds you safe. I wanted to inform you that your transcript request has been canceled. Your parents contacted the school administrator and stated you would not be pursuing higher education. They requested we cease all correspondence regarding college applications. I wanted to make sure you were aware. Please contact me if you need assistance." I read it 5 times. Then I called her back. She confirmed everything. My parents had contacted the school 3 weeks ago, claimed I'd decided against college, and requested my records be marked inactive. Some deadlines had already passed. A state grant I'd been in the running for was gone. I spent the next 3 days fixing it, calling the school, explaining the situation, reactivating my records. The counselor helped where she could, wrote letters, made calls, but some opportunities were already dead. That night, I sat in the shed staring at the wall, and I got it. They weren't just done with me. They were actively trying to block me, stop my future before I could prove them wrong. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad and started planning. Winter hit hard. The shed barely had insulation, and the space heater only worked if you positioned it perfectly. 3 layers to bed most nights, socks doubled up, sleeping curled tight. Work ramped up during the holidays. Doubles most weeks, back screaming, hands torn up. But every extra shift was another $70 toward tuition. The manager started rotating me into logistics coordination. Less lifting, more problem solving. Turned out I was good at it. One night, the inventory system crashed right before a major deadline. Whole team panicked. The manager was on the phone yelling at headquarters when I noticed the error message. I'd been teaching myself Excel and basic database stuff at the library between job applications. This error was simple. Corrupted data table. I walked over. Try reloading yesterday's backup. Current database is corrupted. The manager stared at me. You know how to do that? I shrugged. I can try. 15 minutes later, system was running. He slapped my back hard enough to bruise. You just saved us a $25,000 penalty, kid. Word spread fast. Within 2 weeks, people started coming to me when tech broke. Didn't get a raise, but people learned my name. Started seeing me as something other than the kid loading boxes. By late December, I'd saved enough for spring tuition. Applied to 3 programs at the community college. Had to get a dependency override from financial aid. Brought them shelter documentation, a letter from the counselor, proof I'd been self-supporting. 6 trips and a mountain of paperwork later, I got it done. January came. Acceptance letters. All 3 programs. Plus a partial need-based grant. I stared at the email for 2 hours. Just staring at the word congratulations, like it might disappear. That night I baked myself a boxed cake in the landlord's kitchen. Chocolate, lopsided, slightly burned. Wrote my own name on it in blue icing, just Nolan. Ate 3 pieces. Saved the rest. Next morning I registered for classes. Intro to Business Management. College Algebra. English Composition. Principles of Logistics. Didn't tell my parents. But small towns talk, and 3 weeks later I ran into a neighbor at the grocery store. She smiled wide. Nolan, heard you're going to college. Your mom must be so proud. I nodded. Yeah, must be. But I knew better. Later that week, my mom called from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't cry or yell, just said in that measured, fake sweet voice, "We heard about school, Nolan. That's wonderful. I hope you remember where you came from." Like I owed them something. Deleted. Classes started. Worked mornings, lectures afternoons, library at night. Found an apartment near campus with 2 quiet roommates who paid rent on time. Left the shed with a handshake, a thanks, and $50 extra for the landlord. My business professor noticed I picked things up fast. Started giving me extra work, helping other students, setting up class schedules. Made dean's list spring semester. Landed a campus admin job by fall that paid better than the warehouse. First year was rough but steady. Second year I settled in. Better apartment, better routine, better grades. I finished my 2-year associate degree, then transferred to the state university for my bachelor's. By the time I was in my 3rd year of college overall, working on my bachelor's degree, I'd been gone almost 3 full years from home. Felt like a lifetime. Then one night in mid-September, LinkedIn message from a former neighbor. Hey Nolan, wasn't sure if I should mention this, but thought you had a right to know. Your parents just listed the house for sale. Sign went up yesterday. Hope you're doing well. I stared at the message. The house was for sale. At first, nothing. Just blank. Then something else. Something cold and focused. I opened Zillow. The listing was easy to find. Professional photos, staged furniture, generic descriptions. Charming family home with character. 3 bedrooms plus bonus room, hardwood floors, quiet neighborhood, lovingly maintained for over 20 years. I scrolled through the photos. Living room, kitchen, master bedroom, guest bathroom, then something labeled Evan's office/bonus room. My room. Except it wasn't mine anymore. Beige walls, neutral bedding, generic landscape prints. Not a single trace of the 18 years I spent in that space. No posters, no desk, no books. Nothing. They didn't just erase me. They renovated me out. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, staring at the listing. The asking price was high. Way too high for a house that age in that neighborhood. They were clearly desperate. Probably needed to sell fast. I dug deeper. Public property records are surprisingly easy to find if you know where to look. I pulled up the mortgage history, tax records, past sales, and I found something interesting. The mortgage wasn't paid off, not even close, and they were behind. And 4 months, maybe 5, based on the public lien records. That's when the idea started forming. I wanted to see the house, one last time, before it belonged to someone else. So I did something slightly insane. I waited for an open house. They had one scheduled for that Sunday according to the listing. The agent was standing in the driveway greeting people when I showed up. I'd borrowed a dress shirt from my roommate and carried a folder with some random papers to look legit. The agent had no idea she was giving a tour to a ghost. So the sellers are super motivated, she said, clicking her pen nervously as we walked up the driveway. They've already relocated most of their personal items. Looking for a quick close. Their youngest just started college out of state. Their youngest. Evan, of course. I nodded, following her inside. She talked nonstop about crown molding and updated appliances and energy-efficient windows. I barely listened. My attention was on the spaces, the walls, the fact that I wasn't there anymore. The kitchen looked the same. The living room, too. My parents' bedroom was staged with rental furniture. Then we got to my old room. I stood in the doorway and felt absolutely nothing, just cold. The agent gestured around like she was showing off a prize. This was their son's gaming and study room. Gets amazing natural light, perfect flexible space. Gaming and study room. That's what I'd become. Evan's overflow. I stepped inside. They'd staged it like a college prep station. A sleek desk with a lamp, a bulletin board with a dorm checklist pinned neatly. College brochures fanned across a side table. Evan's name on everything. We moved through Evan's actual room next. Still decorated. Still had his stuff. Trophies on the shelf. Posters on the walls. They hadn't touched a single thing. The backyard was worse. The treehouse I'd built with my uncle when I was 13, the one I'd spent hundreds of hours in reading and escaping, was gone. Torn down. Just a rectangle of dirt and some rusted bolts sticking out of rotted posts. The agent noticed me staring. The sellers mentioned they removed an old structure back here. Liability concern. I nodded. Didn't say anything. She gave me a minute, probably sensing something off in my silence. Want to see the garage before we wrap up? She asked brightly. I followed her through the side door. The garage was cluttered with moving boxes and plastic bins stacked against the back wall. Most were labeled in my mom's neat handwriting. Holiday decorations. Kitchen overflow. Evan, keep. Then I saw the corner. 3 bins shoved behind a broken treadmill. Masking tape labels in that same handwriting. Donate. Old room junk. And the last one. Smallest, like an afterthought. Trash. And guess whose things was this trash? Mine, of course. I stared at that bin for a long time. The agent didn't notice. She was already heading back inside, talking about square footage. I walked to the back fence, hands in my pockets, breathing steady. This was the yard where I learned to ride a bike, where I buried a time capsule in 4th grade that was probably still under the oak tree, where I existed for 18 years. And now it was just another listing, another transaction. That night, sitting in my car after the showing, I made a decision. If they wanted to erase me, fine. But I was going to make sure the world knew exactly who I was. And they were going to watch from the wreckage. I didn't want revenge that screamed. I wanted revenge that burned slow. The kind that creeps up, destroys quietly, and leaves no trace. Then the text came out of nowhere about 2 months after I started at the community college. Evan. First time I'd heard from him since I left. Heard you're working at some grocery store and going to community college LMAO. Then another message. You know what I did to your room, right? Check this out. Attached was a photo. My old room. Except it wasn't my room anymore. Freshly painted, new furniture, staged like a showroom for the open house. Clean, perfect. Like I'd never existed. Cleared out all your garbage. Looks way better now. Guess that's what happens when the dead weight leaves. Stay broke working your little job. Don't come back. Oh, and thanks for moving out. We actually needed the space for something useful. I stared at that message for a solid minute. Not hurt, not angry, just cold. Calculating. He wanted a reaction. Wanted me to fire back something desperate or defensive. Wanted proof he still had power over me. I didn't reply. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that photo. About how easy it was for them to erase me. Around 2 in the morning, I opened Instagram. Just scrolling. Killing time. That's when I found it. Evans Finsta. Public. Same face, different username. Some variation of his name with random numbers. The kind of account people make when they think they're being clever, but are actually just sloppy. His story was still up. Posted 6 hours ago. First slide was him sitting in my old room. Caption, cleared dead weight finally. Second slide was him filming himself in the mirror. Caption, golden child stays winning. I screenshotted both. Username visible, timestamp visible. Then I kept scrolling through his highlights. Months of posts. And that's when I hit gold. One highlight labeled Real Talk had slides from a few months back. Evan joking with friends about copying someone's calc exam. Another slide bragging about having his girlfriend write his English essays. Another one laughing about faking volunteer hours for his college apps. Screenshots of group chats where he admitted plagiarizing assignments. Nothing hidden, nothing private. Just out there, public, stupid. I screenshot every single one. Made sure the username and timestamps were visible in every shot. Then I emailed them all to myself. Opened my laptop. Created a new folder inside the one labeled House. I called it Receipts. That's when I decided. No more just surviving. No more just building my own life and hoping karma would eventually catch up. I was going to be the karma. First step was information. Real information. The kind buried in documents and public records. I kept it organized like I was building a case because I was. I had a folder on my laptop called House, and inside that another folder called Don't Lie to Me. PDFs, screenshots, dates highlighted, county links bookmarked, and a running notes file where I wrote down who said what and when. I printed the worst stuff too. Staples paper, cheap binder, plastic sleeves. Something about holding it in your hands makes it real. I spent the next 2 weeks researching everything about their house sale. Public records were enough. Permits, liens, old MLS notes, HOA minutes, and court filings. I screenshot everything and kept a running log like it was a case. And something interesting came up. The basement had flooded 3 times in the past 7 years. Documented. Sump pump failures, water damage, foundation cracks. All handled quietly, cheaply, with minimal repairs. Nothing that would show up in a casual walkthrough, but enough to be a serious problem for any buyer who actually looked. And guess what wasn't mentioned in the current seller disclosures? The flooding, the foundation issues, any of it. They were hiding it, not just leaving stuff out, actively covering up structural problems. That's fraud. Real estate fraud. Could void the sale, open them to lawsuits, destroy any credibility. I saved every document, printed copies, uploaded backups to 3 different cloud accounts. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed timing, strategy. I reached out to someone I hadn't talked to in years, an old friend from high school. We went to high school together, ran track on the same team. He'd gone into data analytics, now worked freelance doing background research for small law offices. We weren't close, but I'd helped him once when his car broke down junior year and he needed a ride to a college interview. We met at a coffee shop near campus. I explained what I needed. Not everything, just enough. I need to know what's buried in the public records, I said. Property history, permits, insurance claims, things a normal buyer wouldn't dig for. He cracked his knuckles, grinning. Give me 3 days. He delivered in 48 hours. My friend didn't hack anything. He just knew how to pull permits, old listings, and insurance breadcrumbs that normal people never look at. County building permits showed 3 separate waterproofing projects over 6 years. He found contractor invoices my dad had submitted to the HOA for reimbursement on shared drainage issues. Those HOA meeting minutes are public record in our county. Old MLS notes from when they first bought the place mentioned minor basement moisture. There were also small claims court records where a previous owner had sued over water damage before my parents bought it. The basement issue was worse than I thought. Not just flooding. Major foundation cracks. Water seeping through the walls every heavy rain. The sump pump was a temporary fix. The real solution would cost $35,000 minimum. And my parents knew. My friend found a building permit application from 8 months ago, where my dad had listed basement waterproofing repair, temporary patch in the work description. They'd done the bare minimum and never disclosed any of it. I had them, but I still wasn't ready to move. I wanted the timing to be perfect, surgical. Meanwhile, I kept building my life. The college invited me to speak at their fall first-generation student showcase. They wanted upperclassmen who'd overcome challenges to share their stories. Someone who made it without family support and actually stuck with it. The event was scheduled for late October. Campus-wide. Faculty, students, parents. That's when I realized the perfect timing. What if my parents saw me on stage, recognized as a success, celebrated publicly, right when their house sale collapsed? What if everything they'd built, their image, their perfect family story, started falling apart because I succeeded without them? Not because I screamed, because I smiled. I started putting pieces in place. I prepared the documents, the evidence of fraud, ready to go at the right moment. I reached out to the college communications department and confirmed they'd be featuring my story. Full profile, photos, the works. I said yes to everything. And then I had one more card. Evan. The screenshots from his Finsta. All those posts bragging about cheating, faking volunteer hours, plagiarizing essays. Sitting in my receipts folder. Waiting. Nothing huge alone. But packaged together and sent to the right admissions office? That's different. I didn't want to destroy him. Just remind him that nobody's untouchable forever. I waited for October, and when it came, I started. The orientation speech was on a Thursday afternoon. I'd rehearsed it a dozen times, alone in my apartment, trying to sound confident without sounding rehearsed. The college wanted inspiring, so I gave them honest. I talked about growing up invisible, about working 2 jobs to afford application fees, about sleeping in a church shelter and learning to stretch $3 into 2 meals, about the moment I realized I didn't need anyone's permission to exist, About making Dean's List 4 semesters in a row while working part-time and putting myself through school. The auditorium was packed. 300 people, maybe more. Students, parents, faculty, and somewhere out there, watching online, my parents. The college posted the full video on their website that night. 3 hours later, it had been shared 40 times. By morning, 100. Old classmates commented. Teachers reached out. Strangers sent messages saying they'd been through something similar, and my story gave them hope. And my parents saw it. I know because someone forwarded me a screenshot of a comment my mom left on a shared post. This is full of exaggerations. Some people just don't appreciate everything their families sacrifice. Passive-aggressive, defensive, perfect. She was rattled, and I wasn't finished. What cracked me up was how fast it moved outside my control. The local community page picked it up because small towns treat other people's lives like free entertainment. Someone posted the article, someone else posted a screenshot of my mom's comment, and then the replies turned into the kind of gossip fest that pretends to be concerned but is really just drama. The next day, the listing agent suddenly turned her listing comments off. Not a coincidence, just damage control. While the profile was circulating online, I executed phase 2. The house buyers were in their final inspection period. Everything was moving toward closing. They'd already secured financing, started packing, mentally invested in this being their new home. That's when I sent the package. Anonymous, untraceable, forwarded through a third-party mail service. Inside was a flash drive, permit history showing repeated waterproofing work, photos from the open house listing showing suspicious wall stains, screenshots of the HOA meeting minutes discussing shared drainage issues, copies of the old MLS notes mentioning moisture, the small claims court documents from the previous owner's lawsuit, and a typed letter. This property has undisclosed structural damage. The sellers knew and deliberately concealed it. If you close on this house, the liability becomes yours. Ask the agent about the waterproofing permits and foundation issues documented in county records. See what they say. 4 days later, the listing disappeared. The buyers backed out. Hard. Here's the thing about real estate. Once a buyer's inspector documents water intrusion and foundation damage, and the buyer's agent puts it in writing demanding repairs or credits, that agent has a legal duty to disclose going forward. The listing agent couldn't hide it anymore. The buyer's agent sent her a formal email requesting the seller's address undisclosed structural issues, or they'd walk. That email might not be public record, but it made the rounds. Real estate agents talk, small town agents especially. Any future buyer would hear about it. Any serious buyer's agent would ask questions. And if the agent tried to hide it now, she'd lose her license. They were stuck, behind on the mortgage, unable to sell without disclosing and repairing. $35,000 they didn't have. Staring at foreclosure. I didn't celebrate, just watched the dominoes fall. Then came phase 3. Evan was applying to universities, big schools, prestigious programs, riding on inflated grades and fake achievements. I sent one email, anonymous, to the admissions integrity office of his top 3 choices. Academic dishonesty concern regarding applicant Evan. Attached are screenshots showing falsified volunteer records and admitted plagiarism. Please review before finalizing acceptance decisions. I attached the screenshots, him joking about copying assignments, bragging about faking community service hours, laughing about having friends sign attendance sheets he never earned. I didn't need him rejected on the spot. I just needed a quiet under-review stamp that would follow him around. 2 weeks later, I heard through the small-town network that Evan's top-choice acceptance got delayed. They'd requested additional documentation. His scholarship committee put his application on hold pending clarification. Nothing final, nothing explosive, just questions. But Evan would know someone new. He'd spend months waiting for the other shoe to drop, checking his email obsessively, wondering who was watching. That was enough. 3 weeks passed. Quiet. Normal. I went to class, worked my shifts, studied at the library. It was now November. A little over 2 years since I'd walked out of their house. I'd turned 20 2 months ago. They'd missed 2 birthdays. Then they showed up. They were waiting outside my apartment building on a Tuesday night when I got home from work. Both of them. My dad looked older, tired, shoulders slumped. My mom had that fake calm expression she uses when she's barely holding it together. "Nolan," my dad said, voice strained. "We need to talk." I stopped on the sidewalk. Didn't move closer. Just looked at them. "Now?" I said quietly. "After the house is unsellable and Evan's applications are falling apart? That when you want to talk?" My dad flinched like I'd slapped him. "We didn't know things had gotten this bad." "You didn't know? Or you didn't care?" "Please," my mom said, stepping forward. "We've made mistakes. We see that now. But this needs to stop. You're hurting your family. I laughed. Sharp. Cold. My family? Where was my family when you forgot my birthday? Where was my family when you sabotaged my college applications? Where was my family when Dad beat me and called me a mistake? Silence. My dad looked at the ground. My mom's eyes welled up with those fake tears she's so good at producing. We're losing everything, she said softly. The house is going into foreclosure. Evan lost his scholarship offers. We had to take out loans just to cover his tuition. We're barely surviving. Good, I said. No hesitation. You should know what that feels like. Nolan, my dad said, voice breaking slightly. We're sorry, okay? We're sorry. We were wrong. But you have to understand, we were under a lot of stress. We made mistakes. Mistakes? I cut him off. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. Every single day for 18 years, you chose Evan over me. You chose to make me feel small, worthless, like I didn't matter. And now you're here because you need something from me. Not because you miss me, not because you regret what you did, because you need help. My mom tried again. We thought maybe you could help us, just temporarily. We know you're doing well with your job and school, and if you could just... What? I said. Loan you money? Co-sign something? Bail you out? Let me guess. You heard I got a promotion at work? Thought I'd be an easy mark. They didn't deny it. We're your parents, my dad said desperately. Doesn't that mean anything? You stopped being my parents the day you threw that watch party for Evan and forgot I existed, I said. You stopped being my parents when you beat me and called me a failure. You stopped being my parents when you tried to sabotage my future. So no, it doesn't mean anything. My mom tried one more time. Nolan, please, we're begging you. We'll lose everything. I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, showed them the picture from orientation. Me on stage, holding my award, smiling. This, I said, is what I built without you. This is what I became after you threw me away. And you know what? I'm better for it. So whatever you're about to lose, that's called consequences. Welcome to the club. I walked past them toward my building. My dad grabbed my arm. Not hard, just desperate. Don't, I said quietly, pulling away. Don't ever touch me again. He let go. I looked at both of them one last time. You wanted me gone. You got your wish. Now stay gone. I went inside, locked the door, and that was the last time I saw them in person. Over the next year, bits and pieces of their story filtered through. The house went into foreclosure. They moved into a small rental across town. My dad picked up weekend shifts delivering packages to make ends meet. Evan transferred to a state school with no scholarship, working part-time at a call center to help cover costs. They tried reaching out a few times. Birthday texts, holiday cards. Always short, always surface level. Never an actual apology. Just weak attempts at reconnection that didn't acknowledge what they'd done. I never responded. I graduated at 22 with honors. Got promoted twice at my campus job. My real family? They're the ones I chose. The ones who never made me beg for a place at the table. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.